Having risen from executive session, we now reconvene the June 18 meeting of the Brattleboro Selectboard. Welcome BCTV, members of the press, and members of the public. We know the meeting has been officially warned. The first item on the agenda is to approve minutes from May 30 and June 4, 2013. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion to approve the minutes from May 30 and June 4. Are there any corrections, any comments from anybody on the board or anybody who's in attendance? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed or abstaining? That motion carries 5-0, and the minutes from May 30 and June 4 are approved. The next item on the agenda is Chair's remarks. I'm going to speak to a number of items tonight. The first one is news that I don't think anybody's heard yet, other than members of the Select Board just now and some members of the administration. I am going to announce at this time that Barb Sondag, the town manager, has been offered and has accepted a position as city administrator in Olivet, Missouri. We want to congratulate Barb on a new position and a new professional opportunity. Olivet is a town of 8,000 people, and Barb will be city administrator there. Barb has been with us. It'll be 10 years, it would have been, in the fall. Barb began in 2003 as assistant town manager, and after serving as interim town manager, has been full-time town manager since 2007. She's originally from Illinois and is moving back to be closer to her family, which is 30 miles right over the Illinois state line from Olivet. Barb's new position will be beginning in the end of July, and so we anticipate her last day with the town will be July 23rd of 2013. You know, was that? July. Selection of a new town manager is an exciting process that we're going to go through. It'll give us the opportunity to look at and to reevaluate our priorities as a town and to make decisions about how to best proceed into the future. I've already been in touch, having learned this yesterday after business hours. I've already been in touch with the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, and I anticipate they will be meeting with us in very short order in order to help us plan the process of looking for candidates and making the selection. It's going to be an exciting time, and we'll miss Barb. Her leadership through some difficult times, including the fire at the Brooks House, and Hurricane Irene was steady and exemplary, and it's really been a pleasure working with Barb. So we'll look forward to working with her over these next 5 weeks, and then to planning for moving forward. Now that's not the only ending that we've got to talk about, because I guess at midnight tonight, Ken's position on the board ends. So we want to thank Ken for his 2.5 years of service on the Brattleboro Select Board. We've got here a nice little certificate of appreciation, and I've got a little memo to read here. Congratulations to Dr. Ken Schneck during his tenure on the Brattleboro Select Board. Dr. Schneck offered more motions to adjourn than any other Select Board member. In 2011, 16 of 35, or 46%. In 2012, 34 of 47, or 72%. And increasing in 2013, 18 out of 21 such motions, 86% of the time. Without Dr. Schneck, we might all still be sitting at the Select Board meeting. Fellow board members, town administration, staff, and citizens, thank Dr. Schneck for his dedication and participation on the Select Board. So, thank you. I would also just comment on a number of other things. First off, I have been noticing as we've been up and down Putney Road that there really seems to be more construction and more development focused there at this time than I've really seen in many years in the past. The new dental building has gone up. The Aldi's is now in process of being constructed. Auto Mall is being rebuilt, and businesses have been moving back and forth across the road. We also had the grand opening at the expansion of Commonwealth Yogurt last week, and we are going to be dealing with matters relating to the Brooks House today. So we're really seeing some signs of improved economic health and growth within the town that are really exciting things to see. We're going to be embarking and doing more of the planning on the police fire as we go forward, and it's really looks like it's going to be an exciting period of growth and development for the town. Also, just two other things, last but not least, I'd like to thank and congratulate all of the graduates, high school graduates, from all the local and regional high schools, and wish them all their success going forward, and also want to thank everybody who worked on and participated in the strolling of the heifers. Friday looked very ominous, but it cleared out by 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, and it was a beautiful weekend. It went off without a hitch. It was a great event, and it was really well attended, and we want to thank everybody for participating. Town manager's comments.
Well, I just want to thank everyone for, and I'll have an opportunity again, I'm sure, to say this. It's been a great experience. I feel very fortunate to have been here during this time. It seemed an appropriate time to make a move with my partner and I, and I'm looking forward to the challenges ahead in the new city and learning all the new ways there. But I feel really fortunate to have worked with the people I've worked with here in Brattleboro, the board members, the citizens, and especially the department heads and the staff. I think that I feel really good leaving. I think at this point, I think everything's, things are financially in good order. We have an assistant town manager who's been here for over 2 years now, 2.5 years, who's got the experience under his belt, and we've continue to have department heads that are excellent. And so, with that, I would just like to thank everyone, and I would like to thank all the past and present members of the board for making life always interesting.
Thank you, Barb. Next item on the agenda is select board comments and committee reports. John?
Just one comment, well, actually a couple. I don't know if it's going to be exciting looking for a town manager, okay? I don't think that's the correct term to use, but that's okay. The other thing, speaking about graduation, I'd like to also comment on the valedictorian, and the main speaker at graduation was Sam Gartenstein. And he did a phenomenal job. I'm telling you, it was really nice. I just happened to catch it on TV, and I was spellbound by it. So it was very nice. So congratulations. And no committee notes. So I'm still floored by everything that's going on tonight. So it's just Brattleboro as usual. Here we go.
Dave?
I was going to say the same thing, so I won't say it again, but pretty impressive speech. The other thing I wanted to mention, though, is I went to the Wyndham Solid Waste Management District meeting, and they gave a report on the initial results of the composting, and they are averaging 1,800 pounds a day, 4 days a week. It's off to a great start. The compost pile temperatures are well over 140 degrees, and no one so far has complained about the smell. And they particularly wanted to commend Moss Kaler for the work that he did getting that together. And they're looking forward to more. And actually the delegation is going to Wilmington to look at their composting system so they can actually expand it and generate some revenue. So great start for the composting. So save your food and put it up to get collected.
Thanks for that one. Any further comments or anything from the select board members? Well, next item on the agenda is public participation. It's the opportunity for anybody who's in attendance to speak to the board and to the public. Generally, we say 2 minutes, but I'm not really strict on time limits. Ms. Schrader.
Okay. Hi, this is Schrader, Director of the Brattleboro Area Prevention Coalition. I just wanted to do two things. I wanted to make sure that the Select Board, as their liquor commissioners, received their invitation. BAPC and the Department of Liquor Control is hosting a training for liquor commissioners and other decision makers on Tuesday the 25th from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Marlborough College Grad Center. We'd invite you all to come and learn about your responsibilities as a liquor commissioner. So if you're planning on attending, just let us know. We are feeding you. So we'd like you to. I brought extra flyers in case anyone did not get their invitation. They were emailed out. The other thing I'd like to do is I'd like to make a presentation to Ken. The coalition doesn't give out these very often, but they're a certificate of prevention partnership. And it's in recognition of your valuable support and work in underage drinking prevention through advocacy and policy development for the betterment of the Brattleboro community. We really feel that all the work that you've done over the last couple of years to look at the liquor licenses and to make sure that we have as many criteria for liquor licenses as we do for public art installations. It was really important work, and I am going to miss you terribly. I think that you've been a tremendous asset to our coalition and the work that we would do. So I'd like to thank you and present this to you.
Thank you, Beth. Ms. Carter.
God, I feel like the soothsayer of doom. Everything's been so uplifting, and I have to bring up. But I've actually been communicating with T.J. Anderson from the Police Academy, and it was in relation to the dog shooting in 2012. And the good news is part of the condition and agreement back then was that the police force was going to be properly trained in how to handle animals. However, at the time, the funding wasn't available up at the academy for this type of training due to the emphasis on domestic abuse. But the good news is the funding is now available. And I brought this information to the CPCC meeting, and to my surprise, Chief Wren seemed concerned in relation to the money by the town available to pay the policemen to go up there and be trained. And apparently, I don't know a lot about town government, but apparently there are funds set aside specifically for training. So I'm here. I know you've been out of town, Barb, and so I understand I haven't heard from you, but I have copies of the communication that just gives you a well-rounded idea what my communication with Ms. Anderson has been, and also the Huffington Post website that is about untrained policemen having, taking down dogs, and it being a national problem right now, not just a local problem, because policemen aren't properly trained. And what I would like, even if they can't allocate enough funds to train all the policemen, there might be, like, with surplus or something, at least enough policemen trained so when Kathy Burrows is not available, which is usually evenings and weekends, there can be at least one policeman at the station who is qualified to take care of an animal emergency if necessary. Ms. Anderson is willing to be very accommodating. She knows the summer's a very busy time for the police force, and she also knows hunting season is in the fall, and that's, apparently a busy time for them also. And she's willing to schedule this training in between the two things so as many policemen can be available as possible. And I feel she's willing to be accommodating. And I'm hoping there can be some discussion and wiggle room where at least a few policemen in this community could be properly trained, so someone will be at the station at all times in case there is an animal. The animals can't come and speak for themselves. And I implore that, you carefully take this into consideration and also look at the website. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
I read.
Okay.
I like things.
Thank you. Make sure to give one to Jan if you would. Thank you. Thank you. James, did you have your hand up? Did you still want to speak?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Van Slavin. Sure.
Bye, Ken. We'll miss you. And Barbara, to you and your partner, I think Catherine, may the sea be calm, the wind steady, and your compass set to where you want to both go in life.
Thank you, James.
Where did that come from? My name is James Van Slavin, District 2. I need about 4 minutes. This was an article. This was an I'm short. This was an article I wanted to read. It's a complimentary to the department, the police department. It's written by Dale Joy of Brattleboro. Police handle scary situation professionally. Recently, as I was standing at my window on Western Avenue, a white sports utility vehicle was stopped by the police. I saw 3 town police officers side by side and a sheriff's vehicle behind them. All the police had gotten out of their cars. They positioned themselves and had guns drawn. The officer in the town police car on the far left heading towards the interstate had a weapon that looked like a submachine gun. He was standing by the left front fender of his car. The officer in the middle cruiser was on his audio system talking to the stopped vehicle in front of them. The officer in the town police car on the far right was on a yard at the far right pointing his handgun at the white vehicle also. It was a frightening situation for Dale Joy while she watched the event unfold. Very cautiously, the officer in the middle police car began talking through the cruiser system, issuing instructions to the white vehicle that they had stopped. One person got out of the white car, walked backwards, and dropped to kneeling, keeping hands visible. An officer went up and put on the handcuffs, gracefully and firmly walking the person to a cruiser. Next, the police officer called for another person to get out, issuing the same instructions. Again, the police talked. Then another person got out and was handcuffed. As Dale kept watching, Dale thought that this could not be happening here in such a small town. There was a pickup truck coming very slowly down Western Avenue headed toward town. It slowly passed the officer holding the submachine gun. The officer did not flinch. He held to the task at hand. Here were police with their guns pulled, and some rubberneck wanted to go by very slowly within a foot or two of the officer on the left during this very dangerous event, only in Brattleboro, Vermont. The police ordered the rest of the passengers out of the car one by one. 2 of them were handcuffed and sat on the sidewalk. Then they were questioned individually. It was such a surreal event. I kept wondering, what did these people do? How dangerous for everyone involved this must have been, to have the officers have to draw their guns. Del Joy, I am proud to say that police department acted with the most professionalism I've ever seen here or anywhere, and I am glad that nobody got hurt. Again, that's Del Joy, Brattleboro. And that's why I think we should support our police department. The new police department, the new fire department, it's just not the police officers, it's also the fire people that put their lives at risk. I also implore you that sometimes to save $1 may cost lives or more money later on. Sometimes it's better to spend $1 or $2 extra like exercise and 2 hot tubs.
Thank you, James.
You're welcome. And thank you for the 4 minutes and 32 seconds. Sorry.
Anybody else who's here with us tonight want to speak during public participation? Thanks, everybody, for their comments. The next item on the agenda is liquor commissioners. So we're looking for a motion to convene as liquor commissioners.
So we'll convene as liquor commissioners.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. The single item on the liquor commissioner's agenda is a first-class liquor license and outside consumption permit for Dandelion and Sage Restaurant. Is there anybody from Dandelion and Sage here?
Yes.
Hi, do you want to come up to the table? Thanks.
Are you Aaron?
Yes, I'm here.
Erin, if you'd introduce yourself and
I'm Erin Lyne Tyler, going to be the owner of this restaurant.
it's also a little bit of opportunity to get some free TV time if you want to tell us about your upcoming business.
Sure, it's going to be a tavern pub menu with, you know, a fresh twist with more salads and such, and pretty similar to what we have there now. It's going to sort of maintain the same atmosphere and the same hours and the same type of menu. So.
Excellent. Barb, maybe you can just tell us a little bit about the application.
Yeah. Aaron is talking about the business. It's going to be called Dandelion and Sage currently at the Colonial Motel. She's asking for a first-class liquor license and also an outside consumption permit. This establishment has had an outside consumption permit. It has a patio with trees, hedges on one side, and then an actual partition on the other, and as well as the building on the other side. And at this point, the applications have been approved by the police department and fire department.
Anybody on the select board have any questions or comments? Is there anybody who's in attendance who has any questions or comments about this application? Well, good luck. Hearing none, all is... is there a motion? Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the liquor license and outside consumption permit for Dandelion and Sage LLC, doing business as Dandelion and Sage at 889 Putney Road.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the first-class liquor license for Dandelion and Sage, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. Good luck to you.
Thank you very much, sir.
All right.
Golly, that was easy.
Does that count as an adjournment motion?
No, thanks.
All those in favor of adjourning as liquor commissioners, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. Next matter on the agenda is to convene as water and sewer commissioners. Do we have such a motion?
I move to convene as water and sewer commissioners.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody abstaining or voting against? That carries 5-0. Hi, Mr. Barrett.
Good evening, Steve Barrett, Director of Public Works. I'm here to give an update on the wastewater treatment plant upgrade project. The project still goes on at the wastewater treatment plant. We're pretty much doing punch lists now to clean up the project. There's work on the new mesophilic digester. There's also been work on interior finish, the pump galleries, dewatering building, some of the SCADA system. And we work at this point, as of May 31st, approximately 115% of the project contract time has elapsed, and work representing 99.7% of the construction contract value has been completed. The board has given me authority to approve change orders up to $5,000, so I want to go over a list of some of the change orders that have been done to $5,000. One of the change orders is a $2,992 increase. This is for stairways, what they call the nosing. That's the top of the tread, and some of these stairways we didn't anticipate would need to be replaced, but they do. So this is multiple stairways, existing stairways that are added to the contract to be replaced. Also, that adds 2 days to the contract. Also, a roof scupper. A scupper is an area where the water comes off a flat roof. Some of those were eliminated, and this resulted in a $3,188 decrease in the project. And a credit for spare paint for $1,157. The contract calls for the plant to have additional paint on hand for touch-up, but at this point, the paint is readily available and it can be matched, so we feel that we shouldn't pay that amount for to have paint on hand just in case. And the waste burner gas piping. This was a change in the piping itself. This is a waste burner that burns the methane when it's not being utilized for the boilers. Or actually, we also use it for the cogen to generate electricity. That was an additional $3,000. And then there was a change in the signs. There really wasn't enough money originally put in the budget for the signs, so it's a $1,344 increase. So when you put all that together, the sum of the above changes represents a $2,991 project adder with 12 additional contract days. And that's the fire department.
I thought that was your time off.
It was perfect timing. So I don't know if the board wants to vote on that. You want me to continue with the rest of my update?
Why don't we see if there's any questions about that update and vote on, I guess we would be voting to ratify the changes, and we have to vote to approve the additional contract days.
Yes.
Thank you. Fair to say, Barb?
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So anybody from the board or anybody who's in attendance have any questions about those change orders? Well, then we're ready for a motion.
To approve project changes as outlined in the memo from Hoyle, Tanner and Associates for a total of $2,991 and 12 contract days, and to authorize the town manager to sign any corresponding change orders.
Is there any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. And then you'll tell us about Spring Tree.
Well, just before that, I also want to touch on the schedule update. The project, as of today, is expected to be completed in July. Also, the contract is subject to liquidated damage of $1,500 a day for additional days, which we will be having a discussion about. And also, Spring Tree is another project. It is the wastewater pump station that takes all the wastewater from Putney Road. That station is completely being rebuilt. The project's going well. And the last time I was here in front of the board, we had requested a $10,000 limit if there was cracks in the wet wells. This was something that was decided early on that would be an additional, because it was an unknown on when these concrete tanks were exposed, what type of repairs would need to be done. Those inspections have been done. We've brought an engineer, a structural engineer, in on site, and they've assessed the cracks that are there, and I'll be coming back to the board with a change order. I think it's expected that it'll be over $10,000 Initial estimates are possibly 16, but that will come back from the engineers when they give a finalized estimate. So just to update everybody on that. As of May 31st, approximately 75% of the project contract time has elapsed, representing approximately 63% of the construction contract value has been completed. And a change order, again, this is under $5,000 at this pump station. We've deleted a gravel base, we've done some borings, and to redo the driveway, we don't feel it's necessary to take out good gravel and put good gravel back in. That's a savings, it's a $3,000 decrease. So I'm recommending that the board accept that change order or ratify it.
Would the $6,000 extra cost for fixing the cracks in the wet wells, is that what they are?
Yes.
Would that still be within the contingency for that project?
Yes. The contingency is approximately $37,000.
Excellent.
So I'm hoping, along with some of these other decreases that we've identified, that we can keep a handle on that.
Any questions about the update Steve has presented about Springtree? Any questions from the board or members of the public? Hearing none, we're ready for a motion on the Springtree matter.
Move we approve a project change as outlined in the memo from Hoyle Tanner and Associates for minus $3,000, and to authorize the town manager to sign any corresponding change order.
Is there any further discussion on that matter? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. And then you can talk with us about, I guess, the Black Mountain again?
The final report is on the Black Mountain pump station that is on Black Mountain Road, and the current configuration pumps wastewater up and actually along the bridge, the underpass for I-91. This proposal, we're utilizing technology that will do a direct drill and will eliminate the pump station completely, so it'll be a gravity feed line. The design has been completed. The submittal has gone to the state for review. So we hope that this project will actually take place in October, but it does need to be reviewed by the state. And also there is some question about historical and archaeological, some concerns that may have to be reviewed. So that's what's happening right now.
Steve, is that the one that's going to be drilled underneath 91?
That would go under 91. It's the same technology that we use
Right.
for the water main up on Putney Road.
Yep.
Excellent.
So no disturbance in 91, or?
No, they just drill underneath, put a sleeve, and then slip the new pipe in, and then we'd eliminate the pump station, we'd eliminate the electrical cost and upgrades, as
Yeah.
we've seen in $900,000 upgrades for pump stations, and that's every 20 years. So it's a good project that we hope will be successful.
Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
Any further comments or questions about the wastewater treatment project status? Well, thanks. So I guess we're ready for a motion to adjourn as Water and Sewer Commissioners. Oh, no, we've got the wastewater treatment project financials. John,
Okay, thank you, David.
sorry.
No problem. So included in your packet is a schedule showing the sources and uses of funding for the project. There are 5 different sources of funding. And if you go all the way to the bottom of the page, you can see that we've provided $31,551,000 worth of funding. And we've drawn down $29,304,000, leaving a balance of $2,247 still available for the project. So as Steve said, we are definitely coming to the end of the project, and a lot of that remaining $2 million will be used for Springtree and paying the remaining retainage on the project.
And Black Mountain.
Black Mountain is going to be funded, I think, through the Clean Water Fund next year. It's on the priority list for next year.
Any questions about the finances at this point? Have we started paying back some of that $29 million?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
How much have we paid back so far, you think? Do you know?
I know that we're paying back the RZ funds, the Recovery Zone Bond funds, and making payments on that, and I think that's, I want to say close to $900,000 a year in interest and principal. And we're paying back the first grouping of clean water funds, the AR1 024. So we're making payments on that loan as well.
And that money is paid back solely out of the water and sewer fees that are paid?
That's correct.
And that's been since 2010 that we've been paying that back, or?
I'd have to go and look at
Yeah.
that, John, to see
Okay, no,
exactly
it's-
when we started those payments.
Yep.
Maybe when we get the next wastewater treatment plant financial report, if we could just get a sense of the schedule, how we've been paying that back.
Okay.
That'd be nice.
Sure.
Thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none, I guess we're ready for a motion to adjourn as Water and Sewer Commissioners.
I move to adjourn as Water and Sewer Commissioners.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. We're no longer Water and Sewer Commissioners. There's no unfinished business on the agenda, so the first item under new business is financial report. There's John O'Connor again.
Thank you, David. So as of the end of May, we're 91.7% of the way through the year. The general fund, once we make the adjustments for the one-time payment to the capital fund and our insurance payments, which are fully paid for the year, the general fund would stand at 89.8% of its annual budget. So below where we would be on a completely prorated basis. So that's good. The utilities fund are at 79.8%, so that's considerably below the 91.7%. And the parking fund is at 90.5% of their budgets. So the budgets for each of those three funds are under budget at this point, and as we talked about at the last meeting, we are projecting a surplus for the general fund at this point in time, for the end of the year. So what follows then are all of the individual line items for those three funds, and I'll answer any questions, or try to answer any questions that you may have if you have questions on any particular line item. If not,
I want to thank you for simplifying the grant report. I did see that. I think that it's way more readable.
Yep.
And it provides us with the information we need. Hopefully it's easier for you to get to us.
Yes.
The same way it's easier for us to read.
It is, definitely.
Excellent.
I do have some questions. Actually, I have a ton of questions because it's new to me, but I pared it down to just a few.
Okay.
The first one actually is more an observation that as I went through, I noticed generally in most departments they reflect an awareness of the need to be frugal in spending, and I think Barb probably deserves some credit for that. Things like training, conferences, postage and phone charges, equipment, travel, supplies, things that are somewhat things where there's some flexibility and you can try to get along with that. It seems like people are really making an effort not to spend that money. So I noticed that, and I just wanted to commend the staff for doing that. On the bottom of page 1, under planning, there's $77,000 in actual income. Does that mean there was a lot of building going on?
There was a lot of permitting done. I believe it's related to the grocery store, the auto mall, Commonwealth,
Really?
the things that David mentioned at the beginning of the meeting. So yes, they had a good year.
Good. And then on the second page, fire outside revenue. What's the source of the fire revenue?
That's when they do, fire departments might get kind of hired as a jobbing or outside to do fire watches, or they may get hired if they have to go. They're more limited than what police get hired for outside revenue as far as, you know, the jobs they do for construction, and that fire has some similar things. They tend to be more fire watches. Is the banner?
The banners.
The
yeah.
But the banner is separate.
Banner's separate, yeah. Oh, that's right. Okay, so it's more of those. That's why it's not as much.
Yep, good. And on page 5, at the bottom, under general services, tax abatements, The budget was 4,000 and it was over 34.
Yeah.
Seems
Primarily,
like, I don't know what that means, so I just wanted to see why the anomaly.
it's taxes that are abated, and they're generally on buildings that were damaged during Tropical Storm Irene, where we abated the taxes on
Sure.
those
Yep.
structures.
Yep. Okay, great, thank you.
Normally, it's fires.
And I think that's it, in deference to Dr. Schneck's.
And I'm not really sure, Dave, if we've had it's Board of Abatement, Board of Civil Authority meeting since this new board's been constituted, but there will be meetings over the course of this coming year where we're asked for tax abatements at various times.
Yeah.
I think you have one coming up.
There you go. So
You're
you'll
gonna
get
have
an
one.
invitation.
Yeah, you'll have I think
And
there's
Ed
one
will
coming
ask
up.
you to say if you can come to help be part of the quorum, and at least respond.
Thanks, John. Thanks.
Okay, David. So I'll continue. If you go to the very end of the financials for each of those three funds, the parking fund, the utilities fund, and the general fund, you asked me to put together an overview on Tropical Storm Irene.
Yep.
And if you could find that page, I'll try to walk you through that. So the Tropical Storm Irene, we incurred, if you go to the bottom of the first column, you can see that we incurred just a little over $2 million in costs related to Irene. The general fund for the FEMA projects, we had approved projects of $1,242,000, of which the town's share was $62,114. Utilities fund had $265,871 in total project cost, and our portion of that was $13,293. The parking fund had $11,000 in FEMA projects, and our cost for that was $550. So our FEMA cost for those projects, and some of which are not done yet, but these are the total approved projects that FEMA has approved for the town. And our total share of those costs was $75,957. Then we had some federal highway work done, primarily on William Street, and that was $457,000. And again, some of that work is still being worked on and isn't complete at this time, but this is totally federally funded. We don't have to share in the cost of this one. And then finally, we had some damage to the parking garage, which was insured through VLCT, and we had about $91,000 in damage there, and our deductible was $500. So our total cost for Irene, considering that we incurred $2 million in cost, was a total of $76,457, which is pretty good.
That's remarkable. It really is.
I want to really thank everybody specifically for the work that was done, Barb and Patrick and John. I don't think that we could have weathered the storm and rebuilt so effectively and been able to deal with FEMA in such an effective manner without having you running the ship, but really, and Steve as well. I mean,
Yep.
Steve in the back there as well. So thank all of you
Thank you.
for really doing that. I have a specific question. The Stark Road Bridge was one big chunk of money
Yep,
for this. Is that included in this $1.2 million?
yes,
Really?
yes.
Are there any other questions about this Irene update?
Is there going to be any more money available, or?
There's money available for hazard mitigation,
I thought I saw something either in the paper or somewhere that.
but I think that's primarily directed toward private homeowners, is
It's all
my...
private.
Right.
I thought
It
there
could
was
go to
some-
municipalities.
it can
We
go
have
to-
some
Right. It
HAB
can go
or some.
to public projects, and in fact, the town of Brattleboro received funding under this program for two different drainage improvement projects out in Barrows Road and in Ames Hill Road. So we've gone after that where a viable project exists, and I've been
I continue to meet with private property owners who may potentially be eligible for mitigation projects, and there's actually one that looks like may be coming together in the near future. So.
Well, it looked like a substantial amount of money was still available for Vermont.
They have a substantial amount of money, but it's not an easy program to actually comply with and be eligible for.
That's a nice way of putting it.
They're sitting on $11 million after 5 rounds of this grant program. So the reason there is $11 million still sitting on the table is the program's not real easy.
Yeah.
Qualifying for it is really difficult.
Oh, it's got to be.
Because of the type of flood we had, and it's an unusual event. One of the things, just to quickly let people, so you're aware, the FEMA projects, the two that we still have going on that are our biggest unknown, the outfall pipe and the Cook Road Bridge. And so what's going to happen, we don't know if the estimate that the project amount in here that's reflected in here is really realistic or not until we get further along in those projects. The issue may be that, I think we've done a really good job of how we've documented and what we've done and where we were with regard to how quickly we responded, and that put us in good, I think, favor with FEMA and made our projects go pretty smoothly. Those are going to become more difficult because, one, FEMA, has had a lot of, there's a lot of needs from FEMA. Municipalities are starting to have a harder time with some of their projects, and so those are going to be projects you want to keep your eye on, that we'll be watching pretty closely.
Which is Cook Road, is it north of Route 9, right at the Marlboro line? Is that Cook Road?
Yeah, kind of.
Or the Hamilton Farm.
Hamilton Farm, yeah.
And what's can I ask here, if nowhere else in the agenda, what's going on with the bridge right at the end of Sunset Lake Road?
We're waiting.
That's why I'm asking.
They're doing right-of-way work still, right?
Yeah, they finished the final design. We have that. They have an estimate for the project, and now it's just trying to matter to get it scheduled in. That's how long a normal bridge project would take. It's 2 years.
Do you think it's going to be this year?
I asked the question when I got the report back. It put it for 2015, and we questioned that, and they came and said, no, that's not the case, that they'd hope to put it out to bid this fall, and construction would start in the spring.
It's not that big of a bridge.
I know.
No. We did the Stark Road Bridge for 200?
300,000.
300,000. It's a much bigger bridge.
I know.
Yeah.
This is 800.
But our match is not, we're not paying 800, we're probably paying a tiny part of it.
We're paying 10%.
Right.
I got to get into another line of work.
Manager.
That was Jim, everybody.
So, is there anything else in the financial reports, John, that you want to talk about?
If you want me to go over the loan report and the program income report, I will do that. If you're comfortable with what you've seen there, I will not do that.
Well, then I'll just say that everybody has the loan report and the program income report and the grant report. Does anybody have any questions about those matters right now? Anybody who's in attendance have any questions about the financial reports? All right, well, the next item on the agenda is the department report, and John, the floor remains yours to talk about the finance department.
Thank you, David. So I put together a little bullet list here of both our personnel in our department services, some of our performance measurements, some of the efficiency improvements we've made, and then what we would do in the case of a 5% reduction in our budget or a 5% increase in our budget. So we have 6 full-time employees in the finance department and 1 part-time employee. Some of the services we provide are property tax billing and collection, utility billing and collection, accounts payable, payroll and benefits administration, accounts receivable, grants and loan management, debt management, cash management, budget preparation, general ledger accounting, financial statement preparation, financial analyses, project fiscal management, tax sale administration, and trash and recycling coordination.
Fits right in.
Some of our performance measures are, we look at delinquent property taxes, and we've seen those come down over the past 3 years. Delinquent utility billing, that also has come down. Overdue payables, we have very few overdue payables. Accounts receivable aging, we're reviewing that at this point in time, and we're looking at what we've billed out that we don't think we're going to be able to collect, and we're getting those off the books, or we're going through a collection process, a small claims process. We look at our overdue loans, and those are identified in the loan report, and there were 3 as of the end of May. We look at our budgetary performance, and we look at our audit findings, which we talked about last meeting.
How many were there?
There were none.
Oh, that's right.
Some of our efficiency improvements. We've expanded the use of credit cards. We really ramped that up a year ago last January. And since that time, we've taken in $261,000 in credit card payments. We have a much more consistent water shutoff process, and today the delinquent notices went out, and we're really adhering to that process, that if we have delinquent utility bills, we are getting aggressive in letting people know that their water will be shut off. We've outsourced the payroll process. We have NEMRIC doing that for us. We have a direct debit program for taxes and utilities, which has really grown. We take in we do $400,000 per quarter for tax payments that are direct debit. We just go into the account that's signed up for this program and take the money from their checking or savings account, whichever they've given us permission to do. We also do $55,000 a quarter for utility payments. We do smaller batch processing for payments in the Treasurer's Office, so it's easier to find errors. We were having a real difficult time tracking down errors when things didn't balance. We do monthly monitoring of accounts receivable. And we have an integrated accounting software, which we've had now for a couple of years, and actually it's probably been a little bit longer than that. But it has really improved the whole accounting process with having everything integrated. Then if we were to reduce the budget by 5%, that's $15,925. And the only thing that I could think of that we would do is we'd have to furlough people, just about 10 hours a month. And would we still be able to get the work done if we were to do that? Probably, but I think the real issue there is a morale issue. And that's where that is. And then if we were to increase the budget by $15,925. One of the things I believe we really need to do is to remove, we have some asbestos floor tiles in the Treasurer's Office, and they're cracking and breaking up, and we're having somebody come in to really assess that and see, and I'd like to get that cleaned up. And then I would like to look at some grant management software if we were to have those funds available. There are some good integrated systems out there to help us manage grants, and we can sort them different ways. We can look at them in different ways. Right now we're using Excel to do everything, and there are some limitations. But that software is pretty expensive, and it's paid on an annual basis. So, if we were to go there, we'd have to be making a commitment for many years. So that's kind of the summary of the finance and treasury area.
Barb said that we're not allowed to ask why you do trash and recycling.
Point out that the trash is down and recycling's up. Yep.
Goes along with the asbestos removal.
That's not laughing at it.
No, it's not.
I don't think it's asbestos.
Yeah, it's being assessed.
Yes, it's being
Yes.
assessed.
Good.
Yes, it is.
Well, the purpose of this exercise was to go through each department so we understand better and for us really to determine if there's any efficiencies that can be achieved in any of the departments. And so far, the 2 departments we've looked at, listers and finance, costs are almost entirely
personnel, and the services are all totally essential services that we have to provide to function as a municipality. I'm not sure it's going to be different for any of the other departments either.
I think both the listers and the finance department they're easier to start with because the performance measures it's easy to quantify their performance a little more than some of the other departments. One of the things that you look at is, as John said, our grants, our grant and loan program, particularly our grant program, has really grown as departments continue to do more research into grants, and they do rely more on grant funding to do some of their work, and that then necessitates more work in the finance department. You could look at, okay, if you were to reduce your grant and loan programs, you could reduce, some of the work, obviously, in finance. However, you'd have to, that's
But you
balanced with
reduce
you'd be losing some of the
funding,
revenue.
right?
We have, however, over the past several years, started to, when there are some grant applications that come in from departments that we say no to, because there are some grant amounts, it doesn't make sense sometimes to do a $500 grant
For the work involved.
if the work involved is going to be more, the reporting is going to be more, and so, so not all grants are equal. You'll see a couple tonight, a library grant that's a small grant. It's an annual grant that has no reporting back, and so it's an easy thing to do. But we have been, I think, trying to look at and make some of those decisions with regard to, okay, if a department wants to do this, it has an impact on finance, and how does it balance out?
Well, for a municipality our size, it's also important to have the capacity, as what happened in Irene showed. Without the capacity, we would not have been able to do so well with FEMA in such a timely manner.
Yep.
Are there any other questions or comments from the board? Any questions or comments from anybody in attendance? John, thank you very much for that report.
Thank you.
That was very helpful. The next item on the agenda is the circus permit. Is anybody here in connection with this application? Then I'll just ask Barb to speak to the Circus Smirkus application.
This is an annual event that they have, Circus Smirkus. It's a youth circus, and it's held out at Familari Farms. This year it's going to be July 16th and 17th, 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. And I don't think we've ever had any issues with the circus. It's they work well with the fire department, and I think most of our other departments have less to do with this one. So, and it's always been. And who's going to vote against the circus? Besides the angry man at the end of the table.
I move to approve a circus permit for Circus Smirkus for July 16th and July 17th between the hours of 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at the Vermont Agricultural Business Education Center at 157 Old Guilford.
Is there any discussion from anybody on board or anybody who's in attendance about that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. The next item on the agenda is the grant application from the Department of Public Works for the Washington Street retaining wall. Hi, Steve.
Hi again, Steve Barrett, Director of Public Works. I'm here we talked about grants here earlier. Washington Street wall is an unexpected expenditure. We have a crack in the road and the wall is failing, so we feel it needs to be fixed immediately, at least before winter falls. So what I'm applying for is a structures grant from VTrans, and we're hoping that there may be some money left from this grant program. There's no guarantees on this program. We just feel it's necessary to get this paperwork in. The grant is for the amount of $164,700. That's based on a $183,000 estimate that we've got for this project, and it'd be nice if we could get any or anything from this grant. So I urge you to support it.
I want to thank you very much for identifying this in such short time frame and getting it turned around so quickly. If we can get any money from the state to help to pay for this retaining wall, it'll be a big savings.
Yeah, and a lot of credit goes to Hannah, my assistant also. She has worked on this.
Is there any discussion from anybody on the board, or any questions or comments? Anybody in attendance who wants to speak to this matter? Barb?
Steve, we should know pretty quickly the turnaround on this, right?
Yeah, real quick, we're not sure if there'll be any money at all.
Right.
Because, again, it's leftover funds, so.
John, if we see ourselves at this point, we're projecting that we're going to be in the black with our budget. At what point would the board need to commit funds from this year's budget to this project? Would they need to do that before July 1, or could they do that after a July 2 meeting?
Have to be done before July 1st, if we wanted to do that.
Could you explain what this dialogue is about more specifically for me?
If the, if the board has the authority, obviously you make the budget, it's your budget, and you have the authority to move line items around. If we were, once the budget's year is done and the audit's done on that June 30th date, then whatever, if there is money left from this budget, it goes into fund balance. And then once it's in fund balance, then you need to wait until you get approval from representative town meeting. If the board would see that there are funds available to pay for this project now, you could commit those funds for the, and they would be shown as committed during the audit, time of the audit then, and then the board, we would be able to utilize those funds for the project. Is that not correct?
I think the commitment needs to come from town meeting reps.
Why would it, if it's a current year budget, they have the authority to change line items? They could just,
So they could transfer the funds to the capital fund.
they could transfer the capital funds.
But once we close the year and it gets closed to fund balance, then it's
So it
going
has
to
to be
require
done by-
town meeting reps.
Right,
Right.
okay.
All right, so when do we expect to know about the
I
grant?
should be able to get an answer this week.
All right, well, we're probably going to have a special meeting next week anyway to begin making plans for some transitions that are going to be happening. So, you think, so we can also hopefully deal with this item at that time.
The reason of doing it this way is
No,
that if you have the
makes total
funds,
sense.
that you're able to get the project done. Otherwise, you're going to be waiting.
I feel it's necessary, and
Yeah.
and each, I reported to the board, it was 2 weeks ago?
Yep.
And since that time, our understanding that, virtually a lot of those funds have already been committed, so I don't feel that strong about getting too much money here, if any.
Steve, what is
So
it
I think
total?
it is important to have this other strategy so that we can deal with this problem.
What's the total budget for that?
The estimated budget right now is $183,000, but that's in a partnership, working with a contractor, subcontracting some of their skills,
Right.
us purchasing the materials direct and using our workforce. The original estimate was close to $300,000,
yeah.
which Stevens Engineer did a detailed estimate for us for budgeting.
So when you're going after 164,
Yeah, and we do have some funds in the budget currently for design work,
Right.
which would be added to this,
Yep.
that we already have. I believe it's 30,000 or so.
All right, well, just as soon as we can get the answer to this question, we can notice up another meeting to deal with the issue. So, I guess I move to approve a grant application to the Vermont Agency of Transportation in the amount of $164,700. Is there any further discussion from either anybody on the board or anybody who's in attendance? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. Thank you, Steve. And then the next two items on the agenda are also yours. We put them all together tonight.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So
was
Patrick
my
and I
idea.
go to another meeting, right?
I wanted to stay till 10.
Trying to get you out of here,
I
Steve.
know you are. The next item is we put out bids. These are the first thing is a chipper. We put out bids and we received 2 bids for the chipper. This is to replace our 1993 chipper. We received 2 bids, one from Abe Lewis Equipment, Middlesex, Vermont, and that was for $43,568. The second bid was from Nortrax Equipment from Springfield, Vermont. Both these bids include the trade-in. It's for $46,900. I am recommending that we accept the low bid from Abe Lewis Equipment at $43,568, including the trade-in. And we had $53,000 budgeted for this purchase.
Is there any questions or comments about the recommendation to purchase the Brush Bandit from Abe Lewis?
I have a somewhat stupid question, but what does a trade-in on a chipper get us? Like, what's a trade?
Well, it shows you what...
Used chipper?
Like, I'm thinking, am I a used car? What's a used chipper?
No, the reason that we want to get rid of this, it doesn't have the safety features that the newer chippers have. It's much more efficient. It costs less money to operate.
Well, I mean, what do we get? Like, it's
3,000.
Oh,
That's right here.
3,000.
It's
I'm
$3,000.
sorry. I'm sorry.
So that
That's
kind of
it.
shows you what it was really
Well, that's
worth.
what-
But, you know,
That was
for-
my question.
Yeah.
Do other departments use your chipper?
Yes, the Recreation and Parks
That's right.
uses it.
Let's just give it to them.
I bet he'd like that.
What do they need safety features for? I guess that didn't, no? Sorry, Carol.
Do we have a motion
I
about the
move to
chipper?
accept the bid from Abe Lewis Equipment for a trailer-mounted diesel-powered drum-style chipper for the sum of $43,568.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. And now on to the dump truck.
Okay, the next is also was in the capital plan for replacement of a dump truck, and this will be a tandem, a dump truck, a 14-yard pickup. We received 4 bids. 3 of the bids are from the same dealer, but the back body there's different manufacturers of the back body, so that it just makes it complicated. But I'll go through this list, and if you have any questions. So the first one is from Deluri Sale. He's from Hoosick, New York. It's for a 2014 International dump truck with what they call a Viking body package, and this also includes the plow and other attachments. They're giving us $10,000 for a trade, and that package comes in at $198,085. The second bid was from Patriot Freightliner. They're from Westminster. It's for a Western Star truck. Also, with the trade-in of the 2001 International truck that we have, they're offering $7,500. That's with an HP Fairfield body. That's another type of body on the back. So what you do is you buy the truck and then you buy body separate, but we put them in one bid. But they come from different suppliers. That's for $198,575. Then we have Deluri Sales again with a different package. It's the HP Fairfield package, and with the trade-in of this 2001 International truck of $10,000, it comes in at $205,665. And last but not least is a Deluri Sales dump truck with a Tenco body and a $10,000 trade for $206,869. And what we're recommending is the bid from Deluri Sales with the HP Fairfielder body package for $205,665. We had budgeted $208,400, so it's under budget. The reason that we're not selecting the low bid is because one of these, the Deluri package with the Viking body does not meet the specifications. We also went and did a site visit. This is a newer company, and we feel it's a substandard body. We've had big success with the bodies that we have, and we're keeping these trucks for long periods of time. I mean, our recommended replacement is 7 to 10 years. We're keeping trucks 12 years. And so for that reason, as you go down the list, the Western Star, also, they said they complied with the bid, but when we review the bid, there's over 20 items that they're not in compliance. So we feel dollar for dollar that we should go with the bid from HP Fairfielder. Well, the delivery sales with HP Fairfielder body package for $205,665.
Following up on the question that we had before about whether we could appropriate funds from this year's budget, John, for the retaining wall. Both of these items are in next year's budget.
Yes.
So we can approve this year.
We can't accept them or take delivery of them till after the new year.
But we can approve them now?
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
And actually, I made a note in my memo. It's the budgeted 2013-14 capital plan for this purchase, delivery to take place after July 1st.
Is there any discussion about the recommendation to purchase the dump truck for $205,665 as opposed to what's in the memo?
I'm not going to say a word about dump trucks. Last time I did, I got in a lot of trouble.
Good. So, no discussion from the board. Any questions from anybody who's in attendance? I guess we're ready for James.
James Van Sleben, District 2. I got it now. Will they have spare tires?
They actually do come with a spare tire.
Cool.
Yes.
We're ready for a motion.
I move to accept the bid from Delury Sales and Service for a 66,000 GVWR heavy-duty tandem axle dump truck with a 14-yard HP Fairfield body package for the sum of $205,665.
Is there any further discussion?
You tell me what GVW means.
Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Next matter on the agenda is a report from Building and Brattleboro. Hi, Donna. Yeah. And I think Kate wants to say something before we start.
Yeah, I just want to make a full disclosure that I am on the BABB board.
So what chair do you want to sit in?
I'm just going to sit.
You're going to sit here or there? It's up to you.
I'm lonely. I put you here.
Hi, Donna.
Hello, David.
So when we did the budget earlier in the year, we
That grueling
thought we would,
process,
yeah, it was kind of brutal,
I
wasn't
remember
it?
it well.
You know, different for you. So
Thank
we
God.
thought we'd ask you to come back a couple or three times during the year and tell us about the work you're doing. So
Well,
that's why we've asked you to come today.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you for having me. It was a grueling process, as you all remember. And, I think that we are really rebuilding from the ground up. And one of the biggest problems we had is financial solvency. And I would say that we're well on the road to being very solvent. We, through our work plan and through a variety of things, we have really cut back, paid back a loan, and feeling very secure going forward. We don't have an executive director or a downtown coordinator yet because it's taken a backseat to our River Garden process and to rebuilding our board. And so I wear a lot of hats, as does Kate and several of the other board members, and it's it's tricky when you're trying to run a business or you're trying to do a million things. But I think we're well on the way to fulfilling our mission, which is trying to help and maintain the vibrancy of our downtown. And we have hired an interim, what we're calling an interim merchant coordinator, because I think one of the most difficult things with any downtown program is to be in constant communication with your merchants. And if we waited for the process of finding a new downtown coordinator, we felt that we weren't doing a service to the businesses in downtown. So Leslie Mayotte has been hired. She's been around. She's been around to a bunch of the businesses. It's a long process because not all the owners are there when you have time. That's my phone. I thought I had it turned way down. It's a little heart thing.
I thought it was the Kona Ice truck.
Yeah, you thought the man from upstairs was calling you, right? So Leslie has been around. She's introduced herself. There's a bit of confusion out there about what an interim merchant coordinator is, but I think that she's managed to explain it and is really just trying to gather all the names, all the email addresses, and tell the merchants that BABB is their organization, that it is not a bunch of, the old guard sitting here dictating what needs to happen. It's really opening the doors and inviting all of our merchants to join us to do what they want to have done. So, it's well on the way. It's just a very laborious process. We've begun a beautification program, and we have purchased flowers, and we have buckets, all the nice pansies. Dick DeGray and Missy Galanis have been just amazing. They are out there at least once a week. Sometimes they don't tell us which night they're working, and so we see them and go, oh, I was going to help you. But nonetheless, they have come on board. They are doing a bang-up job of trying to help get flowers out on the street. It's a problem. We bought the pansies. We brought out our barrels from last year. We had a problem last year with the barrels being broken. We continue to have that problem. We are spending approximately $1,000 to buy new barrels to add and replace them. It's a constant problem. What can I say? I cleaned up a new broken barrel in front of the old restaurant in front of the Brooks house the other morning. It's what can you do? It's I guess part of it. It's sad that we have people in our community who don't take pride in what volunteers do, but we're moving along. And I really encourage the public to please call Building a Better Brattleboro, or me, or Kate, or if you know any of the other board members and you want to help us plant and maintain the beauty of downtown. We are very, very open to it. We're trying to keep our streets clean. Some of the trees really present a problem because we clean the streets and then it rains and we have stuff all over. But we are, that is a major effort, and it was defined in our work plan. The board is meeting on a regular basis. We had scheduled a retreat, but we have postponed the retreat because we are still in the process of the river garden. It is a much longer and more difficult process than I think any of us imagined. And we're probably, at least I am, ducking for cover. I'm not, I'm trying not to be part of the process because I'm too close to two of the organizations, Building a Better Brattleboro on the Stroll. But it is moving forward. We expect that we will be able to make a recommendation, or at least announce a recommendation in the next couple weeks. I can just tell you that we received wonderful proposals, and I wish we had received one wonderful proposal and two bad ones, because it would make it so much easier. But we didn't. We have three very credible, very wonderful proposals, and so we're going through the process, due diligence. And I guess the only thing I'd like to add right now before I accept questions is that my husband and I have a little motorhome, and we travel all over the place. We leave it here, there, everywhere. We traveled about 6,000 miles from mid-January through mid-April as we had time. And I can tell you that we don't constantly get on the internet. I mean, on the interstates. we try to get out into the small towns, and it's, you know, that's the purpose, is to see what's going on out there and look at all the beauty. And you know, most towns that are quite a bit larger, or cities that are quite a bit larger than Brattleboro, and many towns that are the same size and smaller across this country, are dead. They're beautiful towns with historic structures, and they're empty. On the outskirts are there strips where the dollar store fights with the Family Dollar, and the Target fights with all of this. And we have a treasure in downtown Brattleboro. I mean, there are just not a lot of them. We tend to forget that when we live in the Northeast, because my experience is the Northeast values their downtown centers, and efforts are put into maintaining them. Vermont has a wonderful downtown program that helps us. Building a Better Brattleboro is working very closely with the downtown program. And it's never an easy job. And I personally am so proud of the wonderful downtown that we have. So that's more or less the update. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them if I can.
Are there any questions from anybody on the board? John?
Ken had his own.
Yeah.
I have a couple of things. So first, I'm thrilled that we're doing this. I really think that part of where we went off the rails was because we had no contact until the end. So I'm happy that we're doing this now. I guess I would just repeat what I said last time, just in looking through this, and it was great to read. I just would encourage you all as much as possible to have more concrete key indicators, so that when we get to the budget when they get to the budget process, there are numbers that everyone can latch onto to indicate, okay, this is all successful. This is doing what we want it to. And the difficulty is that a lot of these are great goals, but some of them are really difficult to measure. And so one of the things that we talked about last time, I'm just putting this out there again, and I'm just putting this out there again, is we talked about the survey that went out that I think many of us agreed was not maybe as on point as it could have been to get the information that we all wanted. And so I would just again encourage the creation of a survey so that you all can have measurable goals that you can present here and present to the community, that Build a Better Brattleboro is doing what it set out to do, because we can't measure it in flowers and whatnot, and I don't want you to be at the point where you have to measure it by number of empty storefronts, because I don't think that that's a fair bottom line.
So that would be hopefully a failure, and that's what, you know,
well,
nobody wants to see.
Yeah, but when I read through this, that's one of the ones that I latch onto. Of like, oh, there's a number that we can look at the end. So how many empty storefronts did we start with? How many did we end with? And I don't think that's fair. And I don't think it's a fair measurement of what it is that you all are doing. So I just want to, again, put out there as much as possible. And maybe it is in awareness. And you can measure awareness. And you can do that through a more effective survey. But I just think that will grease the wheels even more to keep this going.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think the communication with the merchants and the people who pay our bills, which are the property owners. And I just want to remind everybody, I don't know if all of you on the board understand how the Downtown Investment District works. There's an additional assessment put on the properties in our designated downtown, and so our property owners pay for the $78,000 that Building a Brattleboro gets. And I think the whole board is committed to working as hard as we can to bring the property owners into the process and the merchants, and I think your suggestion was well taken before, and it's still well taken. And I hope that we can develop some real measurable systems for measuring it, because just listening to complaints and having to deal with all the dart throwers is not really measurable. So I think we'll be working together on this.
And I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but Sean Conley can totally do it.
He's great. Sean is wonderful. We have a great board. We have people who are dedicated and who are working pretty hard. And I think that we've all discussed trying to rebuild all of our committees which I have to say we're not functioning well when I took over. And that's really a goal for us, and to be able to rebuild our board, but in a very conscious way. And again, I'll stress to the public, we're a volunteer organization. We encourage volunteerism. This is our town. This is our downtown. It's not mine. It's ours. And I think that the more we stress that and invite everybody to become part of the process and take a little piece, then it doesn't fall on a few people's shoulders. So, you know, and we're going to miss you, Ken.
Yeah.
Really. Anybody?
I was just wondering, what is the relationship, you know, between the merchants and the owners and BABB now? I mean, is it getting better? Is it?
Well, I don't, you know, it's hard. You know, all of a sudden I'm a good old boy and I can't believe it, you know. That's part of what I'm hearing out there, that, you know, you know, I'm just a merchant. I just happen to have been doing it for 40 years, and I don't know if being a successful merchant for 40 years is now considered a bad thing. I don't really know, but, you know, Leslie said she was taken aback by a little bit of the, you know, more criticism. So I think that there are a lot of merchants and a lot of people who work in downtown who pull me aside, because I'm generally the one out there on the streets doing my whatever I do, who really thank me. And I think that it's getting better, which is why we hired Leslie, because I think that building a better Brattleboro has really done a lot of good work over the years. But if you're not constantly hand-holding, which I don't think we were doing enough of.
But there was some disconnect. There
definitely was disconnect. But I don't think we've hid from the fact, we've hidden from it. I think that what we're doing is coming out with saying, maybe we haven't been as communicative, and maybe we haven't done exactly what everybody's wanted, but now we're ready. And you know, it's really hard to know unless people are willing to come to the table and tell us, you know, and that's really a dilemma, because I can't guess what the merchants on the upper part of Elliott Street really want unless they're willing to come to the table. And if you're a merchant and you're working 7 days a week and you have a family or you have sickness, it's hard to do that. So the process is not easy, but that's why Leslie is trying to be feet on the street right now, is to say, I just want to say, let's forget what happened. Let's move forward, because
I think that's what it needed.
Yeah, and I think it did, and I think that also, and I think that I would hope that going forward, that if any member of the public, and certainly any member of town offices and the select board, feel we're not doing a good job, they're people talking, that rather than come out in public at a select board meeting, that you would know that we are so happy to hear it, the good and the bad. And I don't think that the last process of chastising us in front of everybody is really beneficial. You know, again, we're volunteers, we're all working for the same thing. So if you hear things that you think that we should know, boy, bring it on. I mean, we want to know what we're doing wrong, and we want to know what we're doing right. And it's going to take a little bit.
Kate keeps kicking me under the table, so.
Well, you know.
Well, you know, one would think that historically the role of the organization would have included reaching out to merchants. And so there's part of me that's sort of surprised to hear that you need to build now that capacity to be reaching out to your constituency and working with them in order to find out really what's important.
Well, it's hard.
But that is really the essence of the organization, and to the extent that Leslie is doing that now and that the work is going on, that really is the core priority, to have you working with the downtown merchants and making sure you know what
they need, and we know what they need, so you can and we can support them.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to hear that. And it may be that the performance measurements that Ken is speaking about include just recognizing that the communication is taking place and that people are giving you feedback. And so I
And this is
certainly
a great
encourage
opportunity, too,
you
for us.
to measure that as well. I mean, just the amount of
Well, if you remember,
feedback is an important measurement.
you were disappointed, I don't know if you were personally, but I think the select board in general was disappointed with the response when you did send out, going for downtown reauthorization, with the percentage of response. And I sent out something to all the merchants, telling them about Leslie, telling them what we were doing, and we had a less than 30% open rate. So, I mean, that just gives you a little indication that it's a difficult task. I mean, Leslie's been back to some businesses 6 times to try to make a personal contact with the owners. We're doing it. We're trying. I don't think it was as broken as it was presented. I honestly don't, but that's a matter of opinion, So we're working. I think we're building our relationships. I don't think it was that broken. I'm surprised sometimes when, we've gone door to door, handed merchants stuff personally, and then gone back and they act like they never saw it. It went, here. And I understand it. I'm bombarded every single day, but it's not so easy. It really isn't. So I'll just leave it at that and hope that we can go on, and I'll go home and you can continue with your meeting.
I hope that you're enjoying the work.
Yeah, I love this town. And it's my business that depends on it too, along with everybody else. So, thank you.
Are there any other questions from anybody who's in attendance or anything?
Am I in a hurry?
You see that.
You are. James.
James Vance, live in District 2. I didn't plan on being up here so many times. I like going around and talking to the businesses. I like to find out what their needs are. And I haven't really, I've been kind of like sick for the last 2 weeks. I haven't been able to talk to the town office. But like one person, a business person, Penelope, the store.
She's next door to me.
She's got some great ideas. Like she can't afford the $200 for this person to come around and she was thinking of something like, why can't we use some of the money for advertisement or marketing? I don't think I got her idea exactly right, but these people that I talk to every day have some brilliant ideas, and I love like going down to Moco Joe's or Turn It Up, and they're wonderful people, and they're very busy with their lives, and sometimes they go to like 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, and maybe we need somebody that goes to them and just find out what the information is. Isn't that what our job is supposed to be? Have a great day. I'm probably in hot water.
Thank you. Well, I think that's what we've been discussing, and that's what we try to do, and I think we've done a better job of it than we've been given credit for. Penelope is right next door to me, and I think that I would again stress this is not BABB dictating what it wants. It's trying to listen to the merchants and then implement the programs that they want, but it's a volunteer organization, and there are lots of good ideas out there, but not necessarily enough people and money to do them all. So I think we'll
I was wrong. It wasn't hot water. It was boiling water.
Well, you should report to me what you hear, so we can be all on the same page.
It's just going to take a little time down there, probably.
It will. I've been once around this block.
You guys have been in the
twice around
paper a
this
little
block,
bit,
3
so
times.
it's, yeah.
Yeah. I just want, I think for me it's really important to have a good relationship with the town offices, and know that we're working together and that we, we're mindful of everybody's importance and desires, and we'll work respectfully together and try to move forward. That's all I can do. Listen, Dick DeGray planting flowers on Main Street is pretty amazing. That's a turnaround, huh? That's huge. He's doing a great job. Be sure you all give him a call and thank him, and don't kick any more flower buckets in, please.
It's a constructive and upbeat report. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for
presenting.
having us.
Thanks, Jana.
Next item on the agenda is the skating rink compressor. Hi, Carol. And Paul, thanks for coming.
So we're here this evening to discuss the rink compressor project, what I recently have handed out. As you all know, we had the bid opening earlier this month, and we received one bid for the project. That bid came in at $471,400. That's $109,000 over what was anticipated. The one vendor that did bid on the project was American Refrigeration from Woolburn, Mass., who has the annual maintenance contract of the facility. So we did receive the one bid. There was a second bid that came in, but that was an hour and a half late and did not meet the deadline. After reviewing the one bid that came in, seeing the $110,000, $109,000 difference, we took it back to our consultants, IB Story, to have them review the RFP that came in and do a comparison. And that's what you have before you this evening, was questions that came out from that review. The four areas that we see highlight the areas that where it's the discrepancy, and not so much a discrepancy, but there's the overage is in the HVAC, the permits, bond, and fees, labor and rental rigging, and the structural upgrades. So I guess in a nutshell, describes where we're at.
Was IB Story supposed to be here tonight, or was a representative? No.
No, they're from Prince Edward Island.
Okay.
Yeah, it would be difficult to get them down here for a meeting.
Can I think, or I don't know, maybe Paul would want to talk a little bit again about, so you kind of went over the differences in some of this, the difference. You could talk about the difference in the structural upgrades with regard to the room. If you could talk about and some of the labor costs, I think maybe that would help explain a little bit more about the difference between what we had going in as the estimate, where we kind of thought we were, and then where we're at today. I don't know. I don't want to put Paul on the spot, but he's our expert.
In the first comparative system analysis we got from IB Story, there was a line of structural upgrade for $10,000, and also in their drawing was a addition to the rink, a room inside the rink for the boiler and for a vestibule, which is required when we go to ammonia. Now, it turns out that 10,000 was somewhat of a structural upgrade for the cooling tower itself, not so much the room. So there was some possibly misguided assumption on my part that was the 10,000 was there, the drawing was there, it said structural, and we decided we needed to move it anyway. We needed to get the boiler in a different room. I needed the vestibule, and a lot of the costs are just contained in building, and doors and door closers and all the safety requirements that ammonia requires.
Does that answer your question?
Well, I'm just going to look across the table and call on Kate first because it
Well-
looks like she wants to talk.
Yeah, to be perfectly honest with you, I'm totally confused. And I'm looking, well, I'm confused about a lot of things. I don't know where to start, but I'm confused.
Start at the beginning, Kate.
Yeah.
Can I start over?
Yeah. that would be
Okay, let's
good.
start over. So we use the company IB Story that and they came and they gave us 3 different quotes of different work that could be done. The recommendation was that we move to an ammonia system because of the
R22.
R22 is going to be being phased out. Then the board, we had some discussions about which option to go to. We went with the option of 364,000. We went out to bid. We received 1 bid on this. We expected we'd get maybe 2, 3 at the most, because there aren't a lot of companies that do this type of refrigeration. 1 bid came in late. The bid came in at about 100,000 over. We then go back to IB Story and say, hey, you got to compare these for us. What happened? Why are we $100,000 off on this size of a project? They were able to identify a couple of things. One was the structural upgrade, which was the difference between what we had thought was they had in there for $10,000. It actually is a much more substantial structure that separates the boiler from the room where the compressors are. It's masonry work, etc. Has footings that go down, and so it's actually a $30,000, not a $10,000. You then also have there was an additional cooling tower pump that was put in. That's about a $9,000 item because the people who did the bid, American Refrigeration, said we would never put in 1 cooling tower. You'd always put in 2 in case 1 didn't work. You'd always do your backup. That was another one. So essentially, we were able to get where some of the things were done. There was a difference in the HVAC systems and how they had it. That was an increase of about $14,000 higher than what IB Story had it bid out for. And so we went back and said, explain this to us. We also asked, what you have in your memo is, IB Story also talked with American Refrigeration and asked them for questions. Give us a breakdown of your costs, tell us some other, those are all in here, listed 1, 2, 3, and 4. And what the purpose of tonight is just to bring people up to date and have a discussion, and we'll be coming back again. At this point, then, we've just, we're looking at things, and we're trying to, we're saying, okay, well, we talked with American Refrigeration, we talked with IB Story, and it looks as though what the bid that came in at the $471,000 is probably a realistic bid for the work that's going to be done. It was higher than what we had and what was anticipated it was higher than the estimate that we received from IB Story, but we've been able to say, okay, we can understand these things. At this point, then, we're looking at, we know we have the representative town meeting approved $364,000 of fund balance that would be then paid back over 20 years by the rec. So now we have another $100,000 that we would need to get. Or what are we going to do with that? We can say this, right? And we have, as of today, about, hour ago, 3 hours ago now, probably, the Vermont Community Fund,
Vermont Community
Foundation, Withington Fund, named for Nelson Withington, is also is the name for the rank, is going to give us a grant of $100,000. But with that, this is a bid, $471,400. It doesn't necessarily need to be accepted. There can be negotiations. We don't know necessarily how sharp their pencils were, as Carol will say, when they were doing the bid. And so that's what we're here talking with you about tonight is, do you want us to start engaging American Refrigeration with, in conversations about their bid.
All right, so Kate had questions, and Barb gave a really good explanation, but Kate, floor is back to you.
I'm a little less confused. I think what concerns me the most is that, you know, it is so far off, and you know, Ivy Story came in and said one thing. Then we've gone back to them to say, well, what was wrong with what you said the first time? So I'm sort of concerned about taking what Ivy Story says as fact, since they got it so wrong the first time. And maybe I shouldn't feel that way, but there's that. And, you know, I'm concerned about the whole thing now, because I just have no faith in what's been happening. I don't get it. You know, so... Well...
Okay. Ken?
Are we not allowed to ask how much the late bid was for? Was it so far off? Did you say that and I missed it?
No, it's not.
It's a moot point.
It's not an open bid.
I understand that, but within the context of, I would think it would give us some sort of frame of reference for ballpark of whether the first bid that was on time was for.
It wasn't less than the bid that we have.
Well, that's helpful.
Yeah.
Those bids were similar.
More questions from you at this point? Or comments?
The grant would be the grant would be above and beyond what we've already talked about, correct?
Yes.
My recommendation would be, I don't have a recommendation, sorry. I thought I did. I just, it's just so different every single time we talk about this compressor, and I know I've said that twice before, but I feel like every single time it comes here, and this is the 4th or 5th time, it is just a completely different story. So I certainly second I have no idea where I stand with any of this, except that we obviously can't take on another 100,000 plus.
John?
So, I don't know a thing about ammonia, about the compressors, about how the skating rink makes ice. But what I have had in the past month or so, and Carol, you know this, I've had some local people interested in this, and I would like to give them a chance and to at least speak on it, because again, like Ken says, every time it just keeps, it's all over the place. And is there a way of just maintaining what we have right now to get us through a year, and you know, just to make it operational for a year? And I've heard that we can do that. And again, I don't know a thing about it, so I'm just going by who I feel are smart, you know, a lot smarter than I am about any kind of R22 and what's going to be discontinued, and you know, the different ways of cooling down ice. So, and again, I don't know if he wants to speak to it tonight or. Okay, so but that's my concern, is that, again, like Ken says, it's all over the place, and I'm not that confident with IB, you know, and what on a $365,000 project to be over by $100,000 is huge. I mean, that's a big oops. You know, so again, it just gives me a little bit, maybe it is time to pull back a little bit and see what our other options are. That's...
Dave?
I respect and understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Dave?
I'm kind of where Kate is, although my recollection is that Ivy Story recommended a different option, which we chose not to go with because of the additional expense. I'm getting a lot closer to the cost of that second option at this point. And I think that some of the reasons that Ivy Story was off are explained in here, although it's a pretty big goof. But again, I feel like there's just kind of, as you said, there's just too many things keep changing. And if there's a local option, I would far rather explore that than send money out of state, and especially this much money. And I don't know where you get an extra $100,000, especially at this time of year.
So I agree with what I've heard from all the other board members. I think that there's been concern about what Ivy Story presented from the time that it first came in. We made one recommendation to the informational town meeting, and then we had to pull back on that because we learned that the refrigerant was going to be banned in 5 or 10 years. And we then had questions about the more expensive option, and the assumptions about cost savings that the consultant had provided to us were not borne out by our own experience at the rink. And now their $360,000 option is coming in at $470,000, and although there's been an explanation for the differences, I'm not hearing that it can be built for $360,000 or $395,000. I mean, at this point, in order to build this thing, it's $471,000. I understand that $100,000 in grant money has been located, which could soften $100,000 worth of the 110 overage. That's what I'm hearing. My concern is that when we communicated with town meeting members and they authorized us to spend up to $360,000, it was with the understanding that we were going to be looking for grant money to soften the impact of the 360. And I mean, that's great that you've been able to locate 100 in order to help soften the blow, but all other things being equal, I would have hoped that it would have been 100 to soften the blow of the 360, not 100 to soften the blow of the 470. And I agree about not having confidence at this point in this being necessarily the right option. I'm just not willing at this point to make another quick decision about this, because I think that's the way every decision has been made with respect to these improvements. Every time information has come at the last minute, and every time we've said, okay, it needs to be done, so let's go ahead. And it's just one too many times now. So, Bart?
There are a couple of things. One is, we'll take them one at a time. One is, I think you could categorize it as, well, it keeps changing. Or you could also categorize it as we're learning things, it keeps changing. It was, if you just want to replace what you have there, and you find out, so the initial amount that we were given, the 160-some thousand, you could do it for that. But then you have the additional information of ammonia's not coming in. So you say, okay, well, that doesn't make sense. That's new information that doesn't make sense. We went to Ivy Story because there was we went to the Energy Committee and they said, hey, use Ivy. They sent us to Efficiency Vermont, and Efficiency Vermont says, this is the company that you should go with. So we went with them. And they gave us 3 options, 3 different options. And I don't think that confused people. I mean, I think that was just a choice then of 3 options. I think options are confusing. They're just options. And so there was a decision made. Well, the lower price one goes. Now, so at that point, I think it's been kind of the project's been kind of a pain, but I don't think it's been unwieldy or unmanaged. So I think we've been changing. We went from a $600,000, $500,000 pump station from Black Mountain Road up to a $900,000 gravity feed system because we got new information. We decided, you made a decision based on new information, and you changed the technology. I don't think anybody sitting at this table should ever be afraid to change their minds. With that said, it was to pay for a company to give you an estimate and for it to come in $100,000 off of, like you said, it's a high percentage. I don't think there's any, I think everybody was pretty ticked by that. And which is why we went back and said, you need to explain why this is. At that point, and I guess all I'm saying is, I get and I understand and I appreciate the board saying, okay, let's take a step and let's look at what we can do here. But I think that, I think some of our own trying to push forward and get something done has impacted that, and that's us, that's staff, that's not the board. Because we're trying to keep the service. We're trying to continue to provide the service in a way that's doable, and we kind of thought we did better by going to another company and getting these options. We were actually thinking we were doing good, and obviously probably didn't work out the best as we can. If the board would like, at this point, we could, you have options. We can just start talking to American Refrigeration and have them come in and explain this, if you'd like. At this point, I don't know how much sense it makes to go back out and to hire somebody else to give us another estimate. I just don't.
Neither do I.
And so I guess, American Refrigeration is who we've been working with. They were the only bid. Ended up with the other bid. They ended up being a little lower. But again, this is more money than we want to spend. This is more money. I was happy. I was shocked at 164. So, so with that, I know there are other people who want to talk.
David?
I just wanted to clarify something because I was absolutely confused by the options, and I think the question about the savings, the recommendation that Story made indicated there would be energy savings on captured heat that would reduce the cost to the point where it would actually cost the same or less than the lower cost option. And I was confused as to why that wasn't okay, and I was told, well, it's better for Brattleboro to do this one, and the fees would pay for it over the time. But I was absolutely confused about that. And also the recommendation, the reliability of Ivy Story was questioned at that point as well when they made that recommendation, and nobody knew about this new technology, the new screw compressors. And there also was confusion after the meeting. I was confused about what the role of the Energy Committee should have been, and I think they even mentioned the Finance Committee or some other group that should have a look at it as well. So I think there was confusion, and I was confused, so certainly there was, and I think we're there again, because again, I don't want to go with American Refrigeration at this point. I want to look at local options and see what we can do in the interim, and then look at maybe raising the fees and doing it well in another year, and actually putting some money away to pay for it rather than trying to extend ourselves now to pay for it.
Is there anybody else on the board who wants to speak at this time? Because I know there's somebody in attendance who's got a Dompier Electric logo. Mr. Dompier.
Yeah.
So I'm going to call him Mr. Dompier.
Yeah, I guess I can't hear too well.
I'm going to call him Mr. Dompier.
Getting younger every day. No, I'm just somewhat against the ammonia. That's one of the things. And I read some EPA information so you people could, get, to have. I just wanted to, I'll leave out what I got here, and I'll just read off one thing. I want you to just look at it and see that it's not going to save money in this, even in this, and tell you how much it's going to cost the town later on. It's just everything costs more than to use. Yeah. Save money when you come to find out how much you save. See how much you save, I don't see it too much.
Thank you.
I guess I do.
I'll give this one to Jan.
I get it. She's got one.
Oh, she's got one?
Oh, yeah, I'm on top of it.
You're good. You're a good man.
I'm all set. I'm going to copy.
You've got another?
I'm going to...
Yeah. We can leave it here. Thank you.
I got an extra one. I got an extra. I just got...
Yeah.
I understand that the current free-line system is slated to be phased out. That's mainly what probably was going to ammonia. Well, however, this does not mean that there will be not an alternative. So replacement equipment, replacement gases are created. In 1980, R12 went out. And that, you know, that's been out since 1980. 502, R22 is going. We have these replacements. I mean, I'm just saying, Big Y shut down for the weekend, and they put in 407, replaced all that 22 with the same equipment. They just changed the gas, and they, well, you know, so this stuff changes. Otherwise, we're in trouble here and here with our air conditioning. You know, we have to be thinking about that. You know, it's not permanent cost efficiency measures would require the existing system to be repaired. With a plan to convert in the future, given time to budget funds for this endeavor. In the future, there will be much better alternatives than all, you know, there could be more better alternatives than ammonia. This product might be friendlier to the atmosphere, however, it carries its own dangers and additional costs. This ammonia is more friendlier, but if you'll see there's a lot of additional cost to this. You know, I mean, little things that I spoke to Paul Dutton. He's not the only ammonia person other than CNS. And I don't know how the fire department goes up there to work if that's flooded. And he's interested, anybody could call to talk to Paul. He paid a lot more to have ammonia put in one time with a Freon unit and ammonia. Yeah, of course, he got heavy equipment and everything, but it's the same problem. Probably 3 or 4 people in this area that work on it. You know, that we don't have enough of it, and it's pretty dangerous. We had it at Maple Farms, you know, and they got rid of it before Sweet Tree went in, you know. And there was an old fellow that used to go down in the room and work on it, but we always had that smell around the building, you know. And it's, you know, it was dangerous. We got kids up there that run around and use the rink, you know. Here's, you know, I just give you that EPA hazardous ammonia information. Notice, you know, the increase of maintenance requirements, operating budgets must include this annual cost, you know, and cost of specified technicians for perform this duty. Out of, you know, basically out of town. You know, when I go out of town to work for somebody, I hate to go because I tell them it's going to cost, you know, even $50 an hour. These aren't $50 an hour. But I'm going out there and they said, gee, it's going to cost that much? Well, that's why they got me out there, you know. But I'm not here to drum up this business because I tried to get the local people to come in and just be not the owner, because I don't want to. I asked them, called both competition, 1 or 2 or 3 from one company talked with me, and the other fellow hasn't called back yet that used to take care of the rink. He's supposed to be in business. I called the business number for 3 days, so I don't know. Maybe he still want to talk to me. I don't know.
It's not you, Donnie.
So I'm not here to drum up the businesses, but I'd like to this, you know, local people could bid on repairs, and they could take care of their place, you know, at our rate here, and not have the travel time. And I don't think we would have been down. I'm not trying to criticize, but I know they were called in. We weren't busy in the winter. It was 4 days where they come down to see what was wrong with the first unit, not the backup unit. That's what I heard. That was in the paper that way. 4 days to get here. Well, and the majority of the existing systems fail to replace it, and it is time to convert to a new system then. Because it's a lot. We've got the system up there now. We've got the ice skating rink has the pipes in it. We're not changing them. They have a glycol. Now the new system, I read in a refrigeration magazine the other day, they showed a new stadium. I mean, this is like Civic Center, you know. But they'd probably gone, but they'd have ammonia. That's making it efficient because you got the liquid. You don't have the liquid is doing its job there and not heat exchanger. We have heat exchanger, and imagine when they first put this in, we're trying to save money, so we went the alternative route, which was Freon, and we went heat exchangers with glycol. The glycol's been there for years, and you know some of the ammonia pipes after so long, has to be replaced. It can't stay there this long. We probably, 50 years this has been running? So there's been a lot of remodeling to this place, you know. That's how I feel. There's been a lot of upgrade, 20 years, 6 months of the year. 20 years isn't old. I've got a lot of the stuff my age up there. And the places I work, but they can't afford to upgrade it, but it's still been keeping going cheaper. That's my thought, and I lived here all my life, and it just bothers me to see this, and I can't do this type of speaking. I think I know what I'm doing in refrigeration, and I know the other fellows in town do, and I don't say they don't. You know, but I got a lot to learn still myself. But I do know that's where it happens. No, I don't expect anybody else in trouble. On the board, you've got people from one company comes in and they know. I don't know. It's just the idea. There was only 4 in Hogan, the fellow before. And I called just the wholesalers. Like I said, I called the wholesalers to see if I was on the wrong track. To make myself feel comfortable. And thank you for the time.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Mr. Dompier, thank you very much.
I don't mind helping to try to come up at no cost, and help engineer. I think they should, when something comes up like this where it involves heating or refrigeration, even if somebody can help the people, they don't understand, because they're told there's no alternative for Freon. There will always be. Air and sun is going to be the alternative for it, not this stuff.
Thanks, Donnie.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So if I just may chime in, that is the exact reason that we went to Efficiency Vermont. There were numerous people that say, you can do it this way, you can do it this way, you can do it this way, and you can do it this way. So we went to Efficiency Vermont. And that's why we went to a group that said, to the experts in the field, to say, what do you recommend for Brattleboro? And taking a look at our rink, and taking a look at everything that we have to offer, and the facility that we have, that's why we went to IB Story. IB Story was not coming in here to do the work. IB Story was giving us a recommendation. They are the experts in the field of not only refrigeration, but ice refrigeration, to make ice. No, there's a lot of different forms of refrigeration, but what we're trying to do is make ice, and that you don't make that in every community. You don't make that in every county. So this is a specialty area. I'm as frustrated as each and every one of you sitting at that table that things have changed along the way. But I do respect IB Story. Yes, there are some things that have gone haywire along the way, and as far as getting information along the way. But I feel American knows that rink, as do some local people. IB Story made a recommendation. We've got to take a look at the R22 phase out and what that means for Brattleboro, and dumping a lot of money, good money after bad money, into a skating facility that has been here since the mid-'70s and hope to be for another 50, 60 years. So decisions that we're going to make here tonight, next month, whenever the decision is to be made, we're making it not for the short term, but for the long term. This equipment that's being replaced, some of this equipment has been in there since the 70s. So yes, this is going to be an expensive project. I'm frustrated that it's over. I'll be honest with you. I'm frustrated that I was disappointed when it came in at over $470,000. That's why we went out. And from the beginning, we went out to try to seek grant funding. And all due respect to Mr. Dompier, and I respect him for all that he's done in this community, and what he has to say. There is value in the refrigeration, but what we're trying to do is different, and we're trying to make ice. And ammonia is standard use in rinks throughout, not just throughout New England, but throughout the country. This isn't going to be new to the rink. This isn't going to be the first rink that's putting ammonia in. And that's why these measures are put into place, having the vestibule, having the additional rooms outside, so that those protections are taken into place, that all those safety measures are in place.
What do we do now?
Mr. Bronson?
You're going to miss her.
Yeah, Hugh Bronson. I've known Don for a good many years. He's done work for me, and I certainly hope that the board will sit down and talk with him, and I'm sure he won't be $150,000 over it. I think it's essential, taxpayer-wise, that we listen to him, because I know if this came up to me and I had a vote at town meeting, I wouldn't vote for it.
John?
Carol, so is there a way, and I hate to use this word Band-Aid it, to get it so we do have, it allows us to operate this winter and get this thing running and maybe have more time to look into, you know, really what it's going to cost us and what is the best way to go. And again, I'm not, you know, saying that Donnie, but I'm just thinking that there may be local people here that can get this thing up and running, make ice for the year, give us a little bit more time to.
Yes, to answer you the long and the short, there is way. It's not going to go without that Band-Aid's an expensive Band-Aid. If you're, you know, when it comes to Band-Aids, you know, you're probably talking to get what's running there now. It was operating at the end of the year. We went from early January to the end of the season, hoping we were going to make it. Mm-hmm. That was operating on the 60. To go in and refurbish the 100 and change the parts in the 60, we're probably talking close to $25,000.
To me, that's a good Band-Aid. You know, it's a far cry from 472,000. So, you know, and if it's user paid back, I mean, it just seems like a smart idea to do at this point. Again, it's just, you know, I don't know enough about the system, so it's hard for me to, you know, to step in and say, you know, this is what you should do or what you shouldn't do. I'm just looking at how money is spent.
Yeah, if I may respond to that, based on our experience that we've had once we replace the chiller barrel, and the chiller barrel to work with the 160 that we had, we were replacing the heads about once every 2 to 3 years at the tune of $8,000 to $10,000, and that is what will probably happen based on the experience that we've had since the chiller barrel went in about 5 years ago.
Well, I don't think anybody here disagrees that, you know, that we have to look at the overall thing at some point, you know, and do something. But my concern is just for the next 12 to 16 months. You know, what is our best option?
Okay.
And if we know that there's going to be a big expense along the way, to start anticipating and look at the fees.
Ken, I think you had your hand.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to punt this, but I think we should just pause, just because I think this is where. I do want to clarify, I actually didn't hear anyone say that this is being mismanaged or anything like that,
No.
and I want to just make that very clear, because I don't think that's what folks are saying. I do want to come back to what David said, that it's not just even about it changing. I think that you give us information as soon as you get it. It just happens to be for this project. It just happens to be for this project always at the last minute. And so I would like to just see us pause with this. It's June, so we're good right this second. And I don't know. I like that this is possible motion to be determined. I would like it to just be the possible motion being taken information. Unless there's something that's really pushes us to make a decision right now,
I need a clarifier. When you say pause, are you saying go ahead and do the Band-Aid? Because to order the equipment,
right now.
if we want to have the season open on schedule, it's got to start in July. So I would personally, if you want to have the season, I think the decision is you're going to Band-Aid it or you're going to move forward.
Okay.
I don't think that decision should be made now. I really, and I will be the first to say it might be at the expense of the season not starting on time, but I actually, for this item, do not think we should be making a decision tonight. That is my opinion.
Mr. Dompier has his hand up again.
Like I try to say that, like you said, it was a Band-Aid. But if we put what we're doing, what they suggested for $400,000, that's still a Band-Aid. Because what's going to happen when the ice pipe leaks next year, the glyco? Then they're going to want another 500,000. Like I said, at $1.4 million to build the one, and that's what it's going to cost you to build this thing. $1.4 million probably in the long run. So it's a Band-Aid for the condenser area, but the ammonia should go through the pipes to make them more efficient. You know, and so I mean that's the trouble. There's too much to this.
I'm gonna step in right now and say that what I've heard as consensus from the board is that nobody is prepared today to choose the $470,000 option. Nobody is prepared today to say, yes, let's go with a short-term Band-Aid that hopefully will get us through the next year, although it appears that the board is leaning that way at this time. And I think that the matter should, I mean, there's no motion, so it doesn't really need to be formally tabled. I think that we really need to have this thing represented to us with some further analysis, and without the paperwork coming at the last minute and without a real change, substantive change between this time and the next time. I don't have confidence right now. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, we don't have any information on the Band-Aid right now, and I, as always, trust your estimates, but I don't even want to talk about something that we have no concrete information on.
So at this point, I mean, essentially, I think the direction from the board is to try to make sure that we have a solid analysis of all the alternatives and what our options are so that we can try to make a decision in time for the season to open, if that can happen.
Okay.
John?
I just want to ask Carol, what is the latest we would need to know, or you would need to know? I mean, do we have a month to play with this?
It depends on what your decision is. If your decision is to go to the Band-Aid approach and replace the heads, that can be done on a month.
Okay.
Okay, if we decide to go with the $470,000 approach, that decision would need to be made sooner than later. At this point, the sooner than I'm going to follow that up with, I had the conversation today with American. If they were notified the first week of July, we're probably not going to open when we would be scheduled to open.
Well,
We'd be opening early, maybe we might lose a week. So if we go that approach every week that you're going to put it off, we might open on time, but it's going to make it real close.
I made my decision.
I mean, I also have no objection to you going back and talking with American Refrigeration and seeing to what extent the pencil can be sharpened. I mean, that should be part of the due diligence going forward. We need all the information.
Okay.
Is there anything further from the board on this one? Howard?
Can you rebid?
We could.
Sure.
We'd have to know what we were bidding.
Sorry.
Okay, that sounds good.
That's okay. That's why you guys get the big ones.
Yeah. Nice try.
Hey.
Thanks for, really, you guys have put a lot of work into
How
this.
many skaters vote, right, John?
That's true. It's skating.
Next item on the agenda. Thank you for coming. Thanks, Paul. Next item is Misabi vote to approve or to consider additional loan funds and then to consider and approve the intercreditor agreements.
Actually going to the table.
We're getting more desperate.
If you introduce yourselves and talk with us about what's being presented.
My name is Greg Miscavige. I'm a principal at Misabi Inc. Bob Stevens also with Misabi Inc. well.
Go ahead.
So we're here tonight. I think maybe a little bit of an update is in order as well, but we are on the brink of actually closing on this project. We think the scheduled closing is next week. We have actually completed our proposals from a contractor just today, and we have sort of reconciled that against the budget, and we are within budget, and there's a lot of paperwork coming together, and we think we're going to close on this project very soon. The reason that we're here to talk about the loan from the town, which is a piece of funding for this project, is in part because of some unanticipated costs that occurred a couple of weeks ago, about 4 weeks ago actually, which resulted in part because this has taken us so long. I mean, we originally were going to close on this in December. 6 months of additional sort of cost of, I guess you'd say it's sort of the management cost, the overhead cost of putting this project together is a phenomenal financial burden. And we're stuck in a peculiar situation. The reason that we came to the board for the loan in the first place is that the conventional lending will only borrow or only loan you money against the value of a building. And once that assessment is done, we are at the level, in fact, we're way over the level of borrowing that is typically done for the value of this building. So when we had this unanticipated cost a few weeks ago, we weren't able to go back to conventional lenders for that. And so we really sort of looked at all the other sources and said, is there a way that we can sort of go to different places and raise some additional money to cover this gap? We had about a $300,000 gap. We had hoped that our bids were going to come in and we would find some of that money out of the construction. We weren't that fortunate. We were fortunate enough to come in at budget, but it took some work to sort of bring the project back to what our budget was. We've sort of adjusted contingencies in the process because we now have more secure numbers as we sit. But we were left with having to fund this $300,000 gap. We have solved that, and we're hoping that you'll support increasing the loan from the town, which will be the last piece of this gap that we're at. The rest of the money has come in part from one of the equity investors, U.S. Bank. We were able to negotiate a little better price from them, which took care of some piece of that. We found some additional investors, equity investors in the building. We as partners are also putting a little more money into the building to cover this. And then this would be the last piece to put us to close the budget and actually go to closing next week. Let me say one other thing, that it's a peculiar situation in that the project budget has the capacity to service additional debt. That's not the problem. We have cash that will throw off. This is actually pretty well secured because of the type of funding that we have. We are being required to carry $1.3 million in reserves to make sure that the loan payments get made for the next 7 years. So going back for more debt is something that we've already gotten approved by all the other lenders. The 5 other parties that look at this and make sure that this is a sound decision to make have said, yeah, that's fine. It's just that the ones that loan us money say we can't loan any more money because our lending rules don't allow it. So we have to go outside of that to either additional investors, which we've done, or the type of loan funds that the town has a handle on, which is in and above the type of loan-to-value ratios that the conventional lenders will work with us. So that's the reason that we're here. We're hoping that you'll support this enhancement. I should have mentioned that CDBG also, their grant, which is coming to the town, was also able to staff, and the secretary was able to adjust that up by $50,000 as well. So that was a piece of solving this problem, and that's been approved and has been built back into the budget.
So they need us.
We do, and it's very important.
This
actually.
is nice.
So, it's a huge project, but this is a very important piece.
Yes. Is there any further inquiry from the board about this piece of the request from Wasabi? So then maybe you could also speak to the intercreditor agreement. Or maybe Craig could.
Sure.
Let me take that. You will be making a loan to Masabi Inc., who will in turn make a loan to an investment fund, who will make an equity investment in a community development entity who will loan money to Vermilion Inc., who will own the building.
I follow that.
That is a tortured process, but it is exactly the tortured process that every other lender in the project will be participating in. So you will have the same security as our senior lenders. You'll have the same security as our junior lenders, but you will just be behind the junior and the senior lenders. You will be pari passu with all of our other lenders, including community lenders, individuals, Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation, and the town will all share a third position in that intercreditor agreement.
But you have to change pari passu to English.
It means we're pretty low.
I don't know what pari passu is.
It still means we're pretty low.
You are on an equal footing. I think it effectively means dollar for dollar.
Right.
You'll be on an equal footing. There are two intercreditor agreements that we're asking you to sign. One relates directly to your loan into Masabi Inc., and then the second relates to all of the money that Masabi Inc. Gathers from all of those different lending sources. That's the money that we loan into that investment fund, and you will be third position, pari passu with all of the other third folks on both of those loans, and as I said, it's a tortured position, but it's exactly the position that all of our other lenders are in as well.
John?
I just think the one thing that most people out in TV land would want to know is, because it's the first thing I asked, is this it? Is this, because your closing is coming up soon, so...
Yeah, we're actually in a pretty good mood today. It's been a long time coming. But we're sitting here with the numbers from our contractors and a budget that's finally balanced. It's got one more pass to go back through the underwriting review of the 5 or 6 different entities that look at this, but they're queued up. They know it's coming. So we think it's pretty much down to doing the rest of the legal work, which is considerable, but the rest of the legal work with a targeted closing date. The targeted date is next week, so we're that close. We will announce when we actually close, and we've stopped announcing that it's next week after saying after it was December, and then we were saying, oh, it's going to be March, and now but that is yes, we are very, very close. So,
Are there other comments from the board or questions?
I just have one question. When will we see hard hats and scaffolding and stuff?
Next month. Yeah, probably closer to the end of next month.
That was a good answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the board liked.
We're really ready to go once we get the money. That's a good question. Our general contractor is Breadloaf Construction out of Middlebury, and they will have contractors from all over the place. There is a group, actually, there's a whole bulk of work that is going to be bid out, hasn't been bid out yet, that probably will be local contractors. But we have mechanical contractors from up north and Burlington area, electrical contractors from other places in the state. So it's all competitively bid. But there'll be a block of that. That'll be local folks as well.
So I'm going to try to stump you. When's the closing?
Yeah.
Next week.
Next week.
Other comments?
No, I was going to make a motion.
All right. Well, before you make a motion, I think that the decision we have to make requires a balance, obviously, between various considerations. And from time to time, we've heard members of the public raise concerns about why is the town involved in what's essentially a private venture. And I've read comments about that in the paper. I've read comments about that online. I think that we should be really clear. The Brooks building is vital to the success and the health of the downtown area. And we've been committed since the fire to seeing the property redeveloped in a way that will bring back both the commercial activity on the first floor and some residences upstairs, and the addition of the colleges to the plan and to the mix provides a really, really solid opportunity to help the town grow and move forward with commercial activity and education-backed activity and rehabilitation of that space downtown. And seems to me that we have the second generation BCDP money available for loaning. It should be serving exactly this purpose, to help revitalize and rehabilitate downtown. And I have no concern about increasing the loan amount in order to put the last piece of the puzzle together before the closing happens. And in terms of the intercreditor agreement, I think we certainly recognize that if the project goes south and we're in a third position and we're not going to recover, then we're not going to recover.
We'll take
But
the
it's worth it's worth the risk at this point in order to see that space rehabilitated. So I'm in favor of this.
Would you, or maybe Barbara John, say a little bit more about where the money comes from, the second generation? Because I think that's an important thing that the public should understand clearly.
When you do a first generation, what they call a first generation CDBG loan, that's
Which is
money,
community development block grant.
development block grant, that money comes directly from the state, from the community block grant, and it passes through the town to then the party. When the party pays back that loan, 50% stays with the town in our revolving loan essentially function. We then loan that money out. 50% comes to the state. 50% goes to the state. 50% goes to the town. We then loan that out again. And so the $150,000 loan, if the 50 is approved, is from that money with the purpose of it being loaned out with in a similar way.
And
just remind people the $50,000 that you're looking at. This is it's a 10-year loan and at 3%.
Dave, you mentioned that it also is not an unusual size for a loan from this fund.
Right. I think that the first generation loans of this type are generally larger. The second generation loans have generally been smaller, but there was a similar loan that was made in 2008, so it's certainly not without precedent to be having a loan like this for this purpose of this amount. When we have the motion, we probably should include language as to the intercreditor agreement that notes that corresponding adjustments need to be made to reflect the increase in the loan amount from 100 to 150, if that's what we in fact vote on.
In the second.
In the second motion.
The second motion.
So, Ken, if you want to do that.
I move to approve a I'll just do the first one. I move to approve a $50,000 increase to the loan previously authorized on May 21st, 2013 to Ms. Salvi.
Is there any further discussion about this matter from anybody on the board or anybody who's in attendance or the press? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. And I'll just make the next motion. I move to approve the 2 intercreditor and subordination agreements in association with the Brooks House redevelopment and to authorize the town manager to sign any necessary agreements with corresponding adjustments and edits to reflect increase in the loan amount from $100,000 to $150,000. Is there any further discussion about that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. Thanks. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
And we do need.
Okay. So if we see a bunch of drunk men running the streets next week, we know it's done.
That's right. Yes. We'll look forward to hearing after the closing.
I just want to hear that there was a closing.
Shouting Latin that they don't understand.
Shouting Latin.
Shouting Latin. Dominus vobiscum.
The next item on the agenda is the Public Service Board waiver. Is that why you're here, Sue?
Yes.
Hi, Sue.
That's wonderful patience.
Sue Fillion is our planner. Rod Francis was unable to make it and now owes Sue a big favor. That's right.
So you received letters that I think are in your packets. Both the Select Board and the Planning Commission received letters notifying the town that there is going to be an application at some point made for a 2-megawatt solar electric generation facility at 90 Technology Drive. And so I'm attending tonight to kind of give you an overview of where the application is in the filing process, and also alert you as to how the town can participate in this process. I have bigger maps than you received.
Well, I think if you tell us where it is as you go north on 91 right over the bridge, it'll be pretty clear to everybody.
It's the opening, it's just north of the New Chapter building. It's kind of in between New Chapter and the Holiday Inn. So it is visible from 91. I do have extra copies of the map. You received a little one. They're proposing about 8,000 solar panels on the property. And so it's WE90 is the applicant or the petitioner.
Just to clarify what Sue is going to talk about, there are kind of two things that need to be talked about. One is just this Act 248 process, no matter for a solar panel array. And to talk about that doesn't matter what the project might be. But then with this specific proposal, there are things that specific to this that you may want to talk about. And actually tonight, Sue's here to give just an overview to find out then if you want, how you may want further information on the process, which there's an available meeting to attend, and then on the specific project, which they've already contacted people. So she's not going to answer all the questions tonight, but she's going to try to give you a good head start.
So right now we're in what's called a 45-day period that is where the town and the regional commission get notification that the petitioner is thinking of filing an application. So they've provided us some information on the aesthetics, on transportation, kind of a general overview of the project. At the end of those 45 days, they can actually file a petition with the Public Service Board. Because it's an electric generation project, they go through the Public Service Board process in hopes of getting a certificate of public good at the end. The 45-day period is going to end on July 18th. So within this 45-day period, the town has the opportunity through the Select Board or the Planning Commission to submit recommendations to the petitioner and also copy the Public Service Board on that. It's kind of an informal process, but there is some weight given to it in one of the evaluation criteria for issuing a certificate of public good. So that's where we are right now. If we are going to make recommendations, we need to do that 7 days before the end of the period. So that's July 11th we would need to submit to the petitioner. So that's kind of the deadline that's out there right now. After that July 18th deadline, the petitioner can submit their petition to the Public Service Board. And at that point, the town basically has three options for participation in the 248 process. So we can file to be an intervener, which would give us formal party status and would give the town the right to file testimony and participate in evidentiary hearings. We could become an interested person, which will basically alert us to major notices and pleadings in the case. Or we could participate as public, which would give us the right to speak at public hearings and send written comments, but we could not participate in any evidentiary hearings. So right now is a good opportunity for us to kind of set forth any recommendations or kind of give an indication of where the town is on a project. If we decided to go with the intervener route, what you should know is that the town plan is already given due consideration in the process. The Public Service Board is fairly lenient in granting intervener status to the town, so we should not have a problem establishing that as long as we do it through the right process and we do it in a fairly timely manner. However, we're not, our department isn't necessarily sure that we'd have a strong ability to actually influence the proceedings because our town plan is generally supportive about renewable energy. We haven't designated this as a scenic area. We know that there are prime agricultural soils there, so that is a concern that the town may have, but we don't have it as an agricultural zoning district. You know, it is zoned for commercial, and we talk about a variety of uses. So we don't think that there's necessarily a strong case in the town plan, but there could be in other town policy documents as well. So ultimately, in order to issue a certificate of public good, the Public Service Board is kind of looking at, they're going to make findings regarding the need, system reliability, economic benefit, and then where we would fall in, where our comments might fall in, is the orderly development of the region with due consideration given to the recommendations and of the Planning Commission or that the Select Board might make now. So that's where it ties back to this 45-day period that we're in right now. So moving forward, you might choose to have more information about the project that will be coming forward, that you've received a little information on, and it's our understanding that the applicant is available to come to the July 2nd meeting to discuss that project in more detail. We're happy to have you use the Planning Service Department to kind of coordinate comments that the Select Board might have or the Planning Commission might have. You might want to refer it to the Agricultural Advisory Committee. You should know that they kind of meet on an as-need basis, so they're not always meeting, but certainly when they're asked to comment on a project, they will get together and do that. We can pay attention to what the Wyndham Regional Commission comments will be. We could, look at those, send a letter supporting those. And then in terms of process, if you want to understand more about the Public Service Board and what the municipal role is in regulation and planning for these projects, Chris Campany, the Executive Director of the Wyndham Regional Commission, is going to be at the Planning Commission meeting on Monday night. This was set up before we even got notice of this project. And so he'll be discussing what the rules are right now about what towns can and can't regulate when it comes to energy and how we can do it. Also what the Public Service Board considers when reviewing an application. And then he also was involved with the Governor's Siting Commission study, and so he's going to speak to what their report says about how we should be doing it into the future. So that meeting will be taped. You can always watch it.
John?
So I just have one. I could have sworn years ago that that was designated a scenic area from almost, from the bridge up to the Pepsi building, because wasn't there a big conflict for a long time?
There was a big to-do with the Holiday Inn.
Holiday Inn, and then before that with the Seco, or who he was trying to get a motel in there.
I wasn't even born.
You weren't even born then. That's great. But I almost thought that was a scenic order, and that not that much could be done there. But
it's not
when
in
I saw
this
this,
town
I was
plan.
shocked.
It's not in this town plan. My general understanding is that the state is kind of concerned about views from the highway.
State.
I was on the Development Review Board when the Holiday Inn was built, and I don't recall there being any particular limitations on the development arising from any scenic designation.
Well, this was way before Holiday. This was.
But I'm talking about when Holiday Inn was built.
Right. I know, but I remember
that was 10 or 15 years ago, and there were restrictions at that time. It was actually a DRB decision, and not from the state, that prohibited the sign facing the highway, because they wanted a sign facing the highway, and it would not have been prevented by the billboard law. But we said, as a regulatory matter from town perspective, that we didn't want the sign facing the highway. So that's just to answer that single question. Are there other comments about?
Just, I drove by there. I was at the planning commission meeting, because I had heard about this thing, and I'm interested in solar arrays. And so I drove by to see where it was going to be, and it's behind a row of trees. It's not a complete hedge right now. It's not completely filled in. but it's behind the row of trees that actually lines the interstate. So gradually, you won't
Well,
see it.
I don't know. I went through there the other day and I said, "Oh, you're going to see this like crazy."
Oh, yeah, yeah. And for some people, that's a
Right.
positive thing, and for others, not so much.
Western Avenue.
So I think,
Barb?
I think what we'd want is, to know is, would there be 3 people possibly at the planning commission meeting? Because we would probably warn that if you're going to be there, since it's kind of an active topic. And would you like, at the July 2nd meeting, would you like more specific information on the project itself?
Anybody else want
Go
to
ahead.
speak to the matter now? I think, once again, there's a real balance to be drawn. Most of us are in favor of renewable energy, but this is a large-scale commercial energy production project that would be clearly visible right in the gateway to Vermont and the gateway to Brattleboro on the side of the highway from now forevermore until they take it down. They're talking about 8,000 solar panels in the parcel directly to the east of the highway from when you come over the bridge right up to the Holiday Inn parcel. And I'm concerned about the impact on the view shed as you come through town. And I think that we need to have the matter set on the agenda on July 2nd in order to take whatever public comment people want to offer so that we can determine as a select board what position we want to take, which needs to be submitted, as I understand it, by the 12th of July, 7 days before the 19th.
11th, 7 days before the 18th.
What? All right. I mean, it's got to be done by the 11th, which means that we got to take whatever
Right.
views people have by the 2nd, and the developer can come and tell us how good solar power is. But I think people who have concerns about a large-scale commercial development right next to the highway should come and tell us if that's their concern and write in the view shed there, because we're going to have to make a decision on behalf of the town about commenting on this in this open comment period. And we may want to consider being an intervener, but when does that decision, Sue, need to be made?
The intervener won't happen. It's
Till after they file.
Till after they file, and then I think it happens after there's a pre-hearing conference that kind of sets the schedule, and then we can decide. And Chris Campany did say it's recommended that an attorney be involved if we're going to have an intervener, because
We
it's
have an
very
attorney.
formal.
So can we make sure the media knows that this is out there?
Maybe in a separate article,
Would,
you know? The other thing I would say is that, I'm sorry, they're asking us to waive the 45-day notice period, and I'm totally against it. This is not going to get moved quickly through. I think it's got to be fully
Yes.
vetted, and I don't want to just rely on the Wyndham Regional Commission to say that they're opposed to the 45-day period being waived. So
I
we'll
agree.
also have a motion here, probably to approve the waiver, and then people may vote no.
correct.
We have to do that? We can't just...
I think you phrase your motion in the positive.
It's typically in the affirmative. The other question is, and I ask this only because on other issues, when they've been invited late into the game, it's been an issue. Would you like us to just let the egg... Sue also will convenes the egg committee, so would you like her to do that?
Yes, please. Anybody have any objection to that?
None.
Yes, please.
And I don't know if there's
Comments.
anybody else that you want. So just let us know, and we have some time.
If there's any other town entity that you think, town committee or commission that you think
Clearly, the energy committee.
would want to comment or look at this, please ask them to do it before that deadline.
Okay.
And maybe so they can report back to us by the 2nd.
Or I'm
And let
fine
them-
with intent. I don't know if other people do if you need to warn them
Yeah.
or not.
Yeah. I don't know if I will or I won't.
You won't count anymore. You can show up.
Yeah. What do you say?
Okay, that's fine.
All right, for right now, it won't be warned.
Okay.
Doesn't sound like it.
No, that's
The
fine.
two of you go to the planning commission meeting?
No.
All right.
Okay.
I have a life.
So, I think we're ready for a motion on the waiver.
I move to waive the 45-day notice period for, how do I do the rest of this? For WE 90 Technology Drive
Petition.
regarding the matter we just talked about.
Right, petition for certificate of public good. All right. Anybody in favor of waiving the 45-day notice period, please say aye. All opposed to waiving the 45-day notice period, please say nay.
Nay. Oh, they
Anybody
shot you down,
abstaining?
Ken.
I voted against it.
So, the motion to approve the waiver is defeated 0-5.
His last motion
His
gets
last
shot
motion,
down.
son.
No, there's one more motion.
If I don't move to adjourn, you're all stuck here. I would be nicer to me right now.
That was an
So,
excellent explanation.
thank you for coming, it was really helpful.
You're welcome.
Thanks for waiting.
The next matter on the agenda is the business personal property late fines list.
This is just, the board is asked to approve the $100 fine assessed to the non-filers.
And thus, I move to impose a fine of $100 for businesses identified by the Department of Assessment as having failed to file a business personal property form for 2013.
Is there any discussion? Have we all looked at the list?
Oh, yes.
bunch of notables.
Oh, I thought I was at it.
You know, somebody who was just here.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. Next item on the agenda is accept and appropriate a grant for library services and technology assistance.
Yeah.
Barb?
I'm trying to figure out who you're talking about. Oh, okay.
Ooh, yeah.
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 This is, as I said earlier, I think that this is one of the kind of normal grants that we get, annual grants, and it's based on how much interloan work we do, and then that money is used towards mostly to like postage.
So is there a motion to approve the library grant?
So moved.
All right. The motion is to accept and appropriate a grant from the Vermont Department of Libraries in the amount of $21.84 to support the interlibrary loan program. Any further discussion on that grant? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. The next matter on the agenda is a grant application for a JAG grant.
This is an amount, $19,960,000, and we're actually told that amount. That's why it's such a specific amount, for the Edward Byrne Memorial Grant from the Justice Assistance Grant or Program, or the JAG program. And we would be utilizing this for radios, repeaters, hardware, software, and technical assistance. We are actually kind of now looking at some of our towers, et cetera, to see how they're working with repeaters and how we can maybe cover some better areas.
Is there any further discussion about acceptance of this JAG grant?
I'm sorry, I didn't think I said that was for the police department.
Yeah. Can we have a motion, please?
To approve a grant application for an Edward Byrne grant for the Justice Assistance Grant Program in the amount of $19,960 to be used to improve radio communications.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. Next matter is committee appointments.
You have a couple of, Kate Anderson is requested to be reappointed to the Arts Committee. David Cadron has asked to be appointed as an alternate to the Development and Review Board. And Carolina Alexis has asked to be reappointed to the Planning Commission. Is she a reappointment? Or?
She's reappointed.
She is reappointed.
All three
Okay.
are reappointed.
She was away when the appointments took place.
Thank
And
you.
there is a gap of vacancy.
Do we have a motion to appoint those three people
I move to appoint those three people just named.
Very good.
to those three positions? Excellent. Is there any further discussion?
Sorry.
No, please go ahead.
There are so many committee openings still,
Yes.
and it drives me batty that they're opening. So I think there should be requirements before you say post on a local website. You should have to serve on a committee or something like that, but I really encourage people to, I encourage people to be appointed to committees. It's certainly how I started out doing this on the Arts Committee, which has another 2 or 3 openings. So please, this is your way to get involved.
I'd also like to thank everybody who participates by volunteering on committees. The town couldn't work without you, and it really improves the character and life of the town.
Much more positive message. Thank
Yeah,
you.
well, in the committee orientation packet, it actually indicates that the odds are you will live longer if you get involved in this way.
He's so done.
I swear, there are health benefits.
You leave it with a bang.
Saying after we've been here for 4.5 hours. Is there any further discussion on those appointments?
Is it like this for you?
Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed or abstaining? That motion carries 5-0. The next matter on the agenda is to discuss the summer schedule. I think at this point, it's not really a realistic possibility that we're going to be skipping meetings. So I think for right now,
You really think so, Dave?
Other than the fact that
What's your first clue?
other than the fact that some of us will
Still be
away
here?
from time to time on vacation.
Wednesday to Wednesday.
You know, from time to time. Well,
Or
you
not
know.
jumping ship.
So I think the summer schedule is going to be like the rest of the year. Does anybody disagree?
I think we should meet daily.
Yeah, well, maybe you want to do that remotely. So we're just going to skip over that agenda item unless anybody's got something else to say.
No.
All right. And I do think, and I will just say now, that we may be scheduling a special meeting for potentially next week, at the beginning of the week before 4th of July. I have to coordinate with the representative from the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, but I think, Jan, that we will schedule a quick executive session on Thursday. If we can just, this coming Thursday, can we just renotice? We have interviews at 5 o'clock, and then at 6:30 we're doing the appointment. Right. So if we can have an executive session at the conclusion of the meeting, to just talk briefly about, I don't even know if we need an executive session. About a personnel issue. I want to have an executive session to discuss a personnel issue.
Contractual issues
And
we're gonna
contractual
talk about
issues
as well.
at the end of the appointment process. All right, so if we can just include that, and we'll probably have notice at that point.
Jeez, I'll be
of the
here all
meeting for
day on
next week.
Thursday.
Have a new member too.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. So that's meeting scheduling. And I think the next item on the agenda is Dr. Schneck.
Now wait a minute. Before he goes, a little round of Ken. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I will say congratulations to Catherine Lloyd, Marlborough College class of 2011, on filming her first meeting.
How'd it go?
He's got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, well done. On this Thursday at 4 p.m., the Police and Fire Facility Building Committee will be meeting in the Hannah Cosman Room. At 5 p.m., there will be a special Select Board meeting where they will fill an unfillable spot here in the Select Board meeting room. And at 6:30, there will be a second special Select Board meeting with further action. On Monday, June 24th at 5:30 p.m., the Citizens Police Communications Committee will be meeting in the Brooks Memorial Library Community Room. Also on Monday, the 24th at 6 p.m., the Planning Commission with special guests will be meeting in the Select Board meeting room. On Tuesday, the 25th at 8:30 a.m., the Traffic Safety Committee will be meeting in the Select Board meeting room. Also on Tuesday, the 25th of June at 4:30 p.m., the Finance Committee will be meeting in the Select Board meeting room. And also on that Tuesday at 5:15, the Conservation Commission will be meeting in the Hannah Cosman.
Finish with a flare, Ken. Come on.
On Thursday, the 27th at 4 p.m., the Police and Fire Facility Building Committee will be having their weekly meeting in the Hannah Cosman Room. On Monday, July 1st, the Energy Committee will be meeting in the Hannah Cosman Room. On Tuesday, July 2nd, it is anticipated at 6:15 p.m. that the newly constituted Select Board will meet here in the Select Board meeting room for their next regularly scheduled meeting.
And here it is.
Time, I move to adjourn.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody abstaining or opposed?
Nay.
Very nice. Carries 4-1. Thank you. Thank you, DCTV. Thank you, members of the press. Thank you, Mr. Bronson.
I know, we should have voted no.